Oh,
Hey guys, welcome back. For those of you that are just joining us, we've put this vlog together in the wake of the 4 Air Venturi Avenger videos, the 2 on the rifle and the 2 on the pup that you'll see. 2 videos on this channel, 2 on my other channel, AEAC Home. And after that first video that we did a couple years ago, it was 2020, wasn't it?
yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of
April-ish,
April-ish.
maybe.
A lot of audience questions. I think that one tuning guide is up to 850 some comments and a couple of 100,000 views, and I don't even know where the full review is at. I haven't peeked at it, but the point is, a lot of you guys have questions for Tyler, and if you don't know Tyler, well, I think a lot of you may know him by his YouTube personality, Pyramid Air Insider, but he also happens to be the product manager for Air Venturi, as well as a very successful competitive shooter. And this guy was throwing a lot of the levers behind the scenes for the development of the both Avengers with Nova Vista. And so I've always wanted to be able to get you in front of my audience so that you could answer the questions that they have that I just don't know how to answer. So what we did, guys, in the last 2 Avenger videos, we sent everybody over to the Airgun Nation forum, and there's a sticky topic over there. And we let it run for, probably 3 weeks or so. And we've got 3 pages of questions. And we titled it a Q&A for Tyler Patner of the Air Venturi product manager. And what I'm going to do with Tyler today is we're going to try to just tear through all of those questions and get you guys just a fire hose of information relief here. And without any further ado, T, I'm going to get right into it unless you think there's anything I've missed that you want to say to introduce yourself.
No, that was way nicer than I would have introduced myself. So all good. Yeah, let's go.
Well, the truth will set you free. So here we go. Will there be a Pyramid Air Cup in 2022? If so, how can we stay up to speed on the who, the what, the where, and the when? I have a limited amount of FT vacation time. I can flex and not take away from family vacation time. Thanks for all you do! Exclamation point. Dave.
Dave, you're welcome. So to begin with, there will not be a Pyramid Air Cup 2022. To get updates for the Pyramid Air Cup, we have a separate website, pyramidaircup.com. You go over there, check it out. It says we'll see you in 2023. Reason being, it's not COVID related or anything like that. It has to do with the departure of our marketing director, Kristen Koss, who left us very early this year to move on to other things within the firearms industry or gun industry, which is cool.
Can you say the company that she went to?
Sure. Yeah, she works for Daniel Defense now. So if you're in
That's
AR-15s,
sweet.
Yeah, for sure. I've already hit her up like, hey, when can I hit you up about industry discounts, man?
Don't think you're the only one.
Yeah, I bet.
I got a couple in the closet. I said, if ever you need someone to make AR videos for you, call me. Be happy to.
That'd be cool to see. Yeah, so when she left, she was the planning arm of the Cup. Like coordinating with vendors, obviously, like somebody like yourself that's going to come out and film it. Like, she's the person that's coordinating all of these moving things before we get on site. And then once we get on site, that's kind of where I take over. So without her and without somebody to replace her right now, so we're still in search of the right person to fill that role. Once that happens, obviously, then we're looking to be back on track with a lot of things, not just the Pyramid Cup, but that will be something that's for sure happening one way or another in 2023.
Good deal. And we'll all look forward to that and coming and hanging out with y'all in Ohio.
Yes.
What's the name of that shooting club, by the way? That place was amazing.
Yeah, the Cardinal Shooting Center. It's an incredible place, and they've only done so. Actually, as a little like teaser for folks. So since then, I've been back out there once or twice to meet with them and just make sure that everything's still good. There's so much going on there; it's kind of crazy. But the range that we hosted the bench rest and gunslinger competitions on, they built a bunch of bays right next to it now. So there's a 50-yard range, or I think it's 55 yards because of 50-meter range. That's covered now, that can be used for sight-in for field target guys or for the gunslinger competition ahead of time so that we're not compromising the kind of main range for bench rest as well. So it'll be practicing for bench rest over here and practicing for everything else over there. But there's also other bays where we can host like manufacturers to demo their guns, and they even put in a tunnel, a 100-yard tunnel. Yeah. So it's above ground. Yeah, so they have it set up. I think they're partnered with Lapua to go to test batches of centerfire ammo and brimfire ammo. at 100 meters. I think it's rimfire only actually, but anyway, yeah. So like my brain, like I saw that, my brain started turning with like, oh my gosh, what if we could rent this out for air gunners for 15-minute or 30-minute slots, a day or two ahead of the competition, for you to come in, make sure your gun's all good in a windless setting, that everything's where you need it to be before you go out and practice in the wind or try and figure out the wind, which at that place, good luck.
Yeah, good. What an incredible facility. It reminds me
Yeah.
of that tunnel made me think of Travis for some reason. When
Oh
he
yeah,
was
because they
making
used to
videos
shoot
for
the video.
Airgun Depot,
Yeah.
sitting in the bat cave and shooting in the good conditions.
It must be nice, yeah.
All right, are we ready for another one?
Sure.
Next question. Is there thoughts of a wood stock bullpup? And is there a way to upgrade your transport and or hammer spring for more your transport? I think you meant transfer port.
Transfer port,
And
yeah.
is there a way to upgrade your transfer port and or hammer spring for more power?
Okay. There are no plans to do a wood stock version of the Bullpup as a standalone rifle or gun on the website. What we may do if it gets developed and looks cool and we think it'll do well is kind of similarly to what we've done with the Woodstock Avengers, offer it as a upgrade that you can purchase and then slap onto your existing Bullpup or purchase with your Avenger Bullpup. At least right now, I don't know if the demand will be there because it will be a considerably heavy, like much heavier rifle once you go to a Woodstock. And it's already 7.5 pounds, kind of like at the top end of where we're comfortable with.
9.5 with a scope and
Sure, right.
and a magazine full of lead and all that jazz.
Right. So, it's one of those things where you're like, you're going to throw a Woodstock on, it's probably going to increase the weight a half pound to a full pound, potentially. And then you're talking about like almost exclusively a bench gun or something. So,
Sure.
but we also know there are people out there that want it. So we're happy to offer it if it does come to fruition. But I can't tell you guys anything, but there's a lot of other stuff in the pipeline right now that's going to be just as cool, if not better, my opinion, heavily biased, but we'll see.
It makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't want to get that pup any heavier because that kind of defeats the whole purpose of it being a pup, probably.
Yes, there was a transfer port and hammer spring. Was that the other part of the question?
He was asking if you're going to offer I think the transfer port and the hammer spring to be interchangeable.
Oh,
and
okay.
So kind of have some back and forth.
So the transfer port is actually part of the barrel. So it's a hole cut into the barrel, seals around it that seals against the breech block. Inside of the breech block, there's a corresponding hole for the air to come through. So there's not really any way to modify that. You could certainly restrict it if you wanted to, although you'd have to be kind of careful about how you do that, just because you'd have to put something through the barrel potentially, and that could damage your pellets as you load. I have seen people open them up. I can say that. Like I've seen people, pull the barrels out and even pull, the gun apart and open up the transfer ports, which is always interesting to see, if they're looking to get more or better airflow, if they think that's an issue, right? Hammer spring wise, we don't have a separate hammer spring, anything like that lined up. You could certainly pull it out and shim it if you really wanted to, putting spacers behind it to increase the preload. Or if you know a place that sells like springs or spring sections, you could always make your own. So, but no plans to offer anything like that as like an upgraded, or maybe, you get what I'm saying.
I do. I'm following you.
Hopefully they are too.
They are. You are coming across very clearly and concisely. Okay, next one. Have the latest / newest Avengers been tweaked over the original ? I ask because the Bullpup that Steve reviewed seems to perform a little higher than my 25 rifle.
I'm assuming higher, more powerful is what he means. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Steve, actually, what differences did you see between the original Avenger you reviewed and the Bullpup in terms of like maybe some of those small changes that have been made?
The rifle that I reviewed was a 22 cal, so its operating window was like, if I remember, 24, 25 foot-pounds up to like maybe 45 foot-pounds, 47 foot-pounds, something like that. And then the pup I got was a 25 cal, so its operating window was like I think 57, 58, 59 foot-pounds and down as low as, in the mid 40s or something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember watching a couple of other videos after I had done my rifle review, and I felt like those guys with the 25 cal were getting like mid 50s for foot-pounds, and then on their 25s, and then he might have seen me, clip 60 foot-pounds when I posted the pup 25 cal. So maybe that's what he's making reference to.
Possibly, yeah. So I could roll through them. I have an action here for a bullpup that's kind of torn apart. So there's a couple things. The one important one, oh gosh, here we go. We're gonna have this
Hold it in front of your face and you'll be
there
good.
we go. All right. So Steve, if you remember, actually, you can see it in my background picture. There was the way this shroud was secured before had this little set screw in it, right? And that's screwed into a piece of plastic, that whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. So this is now threaded on to this end cap. So it's a much more solid system, which is one thing that we one change. Another one is actually what I suspect he's talking about is the valve itself, which is housed in this guy. The firing valve changed a little bit. It's not a big change, but it does allow for better airflow. It's also a different material, which that happened pretty early on, actually, well before the Bullpup came out. I want to say the third or fourth shipment of the gun, the original. So this is even pre-Woodstock. So that's probably what he's alluding to. And that would be the biggest change when we talk about power. And obviously there's the baffle stack that's part of the, the end cap when you thread that out as well. Just little changes that enhance it a little bit. Although quite frankly, it doesn't do a whole hell of a lot in 25 to help the sound. In 22 and 177, it's much more noticeable what that baffle stack does, but it's just that 25 puts out a lot of air.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking while trying to listen to you and think at the same time. It's challenging, but I was just sitting here thinking it could have been the tune. It could have been his tune that's getting him to that not as good place. Like I know on these Avengers, and until you kind of get a feel for it, or any air gun for that matter, more doesn't always equal more. In other words, sometimes you get your greatest power and velocity with not necessarily your highest hammer spring or regulator setting, or maybe you have your hammer spring maxed out. And so in your mind, you're like, okay, this gives me the most power, but you haven't found that balance point for it with the regulator to where the two are working, where it will give you the most power. So for him, I would recommend, if you want to see more than what you're getting, max out that hammer spring and then go in search of a regulator pressure that works with your hammer spring setting. Start low to high, and eventually you'll see your shots come up, and then they'll start to fall off or reduce as far as velocity. And once they do, that's the most that your gun's going to put out. Also, ammo, a heavier pellet or slug is going to give you more foot-pounds. So maybe look to see what weight pellet or slug I was testing with, and try to do the same, and then hopefully you'll achieve your objectives.
Yes.
All right, next one. When are we going to see Tyler go topless with Donnie Reed again?
One time, man. You do stuff one time on the internet and it lives forever. Good God.
There are no excuses in Internetville.
So I get to call Donnie Reed out right now. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So the place we left off with Donnie and I was we had this Avenger shooting challenge. Steve, this probably like totally didn't hit your radar. Yeah. Okay. So so Donnie works for Baker Airguns. He's the video guy over at Baker. Great dude. Love Donnie. And we see each other all through the year at airgun shows and at shooting competitions because they're local. So we're shooting the same field target matches and all that stuff. So when the Avenger came out, I went down there to, hand them one off so they could, review it, but check it out because, they're an Air Venturi dealer and, we obviously want them to be a part of the launch of the gun. So Donnie was like, oh, you want to do a shooting competition with me? And it all got into, I think I said something on Instagram. I do those Q&As on Instagram. I think I said something.
Which are great, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's easy. Like people are like, I don't know how you find the time to do that. And I'm like, it's like 15 minutes of my day. Like, it's just go, right? It's like this. So anyway, I think I made a joke at Donnie's expense in an Instagram question, and he came back at me with like, I bet you I get outshoot you type of deal, right? So we did this competition with the Avenger. I won, but I lost. So after reviewing the footage, the target we had was malfunctioning. So when the paddle went down, I didn't actually hit the paddle, right? Like it was just a malfunction of the target. I still think I won because that's like, hey, if the target goes down, it goes down and I win, right? It didn't go down for Donnie, not my problem. You should have checked the target first, right? No, I'm kidding. So then we had to do it again, had to run it back, but this time we did it with Springers. So me with a TX and him with a HW97. And he took that one too. He's great at these like 1-2 shot things, man. I'm gonna tell you what. So then I said, you know what? All right, I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I had just started shooting a spring gun for a field target, and I said, you and me, I will shoot whatever division you want to shoot in, and we will go head to head with our spring guns in a field target match, and whoever wins, like, settled, you know. And then he went and sold his HW97. So I don't know what's going on with that now. It's fine. But yeah, I get it'll be a little bit because I think Donnie's got to get shoulder surgery or something in the next month or two. So he's going to be off the field target scene for a little bit. So our chances are going to be limited to run it back until he recovers. So, okay. But we'll come back with something epic. Yeah.
let me mirror Donnie's sentiments, Tyler, and just let everybody know that you have a knack for always making me feel like I'm the only customer or industry partner that you have. It doesn't matter how busy you are. I feel like whether you're in the men's room or in the middle of a shoot, if I call you or text you, you know, you're right back there with me, and you're always making the time for me, and it's noticed and appreciated.
Well, hey, happy to help, man. That's nice to hear. You try and be responsive, like, to everybody, and there are certain things that come through my phone or through my email inbox that I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. But usually, no, it's all good, and you know, especially when we're talking about our products and things that we're putting out there, it's you have to put your best foot forward, and there's no reason not to, like, do that, I guess.
I feel it. I feel like you always just find that time.
Well, all right. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Scope centering has been a topic of discussion in the past, and I had a similar problem. After replacing the scope rail with an aftermarket aluminum Picatinny rail and shimming the scope rings, it now works, but I still have lost much of my scopes and MOA adjustment on the right side and for elevation just where I need it most. Maybe you can address this. I love my 25 cal and wouldn't part with it.
Okay. This is an interesting one. So, quite frankly, I've shot a lot of Avengers, and this is not something that I've encountered, but I've read it from people, not with great frequency, but every now and again. So actually, in the image above my head right here, you can see the original scope rails. What the folks at home that don't have an Avenger may not realize is that these are metal scope rails that kind of like insert on top of a cast aluminum frame. And then it's covered with the plastic that you see here. Actually, I have it. The rails are taken off on this Bullpup action, so you can see it here. So this is how, like, those scope pieces for the rifle versions just snap right over the top of this, and then you have a screw here, and then 3 in the back for that longer section. What can happen, because all of the above parts are cast, okay? There can be a little bit of flashing on either like these pieces here or potentially in that on the underside of the scope rail section. So that is usually where I tell folks to start, is pull that off, take a look. And if you see any like little flecks or things sticking off or anything like that, you know, take a little file and knock it down, or a pick or something and get it out of there, because obviously that may have an impact on how tight you're able to get it, or how it, you know, kind of ends up securing down once you have those screws in. The other thing is, make sure the screws are tight in the first place. You know, there's a lot of, I'm sure, I don't know if there's a question in here about it or not, but like POI shifts can sometimes happen as a result of those screws coming loose, right? So little things like that.
A lot of reasons.
Yeah. The good thing about having a low cost gun is that
it's low cost.
Right. Yeah. I think people are maybe have like reduced expectations or lowered expectations, I should say. So there are things that they're willing to accept that they're maybe not willing to accept if it was $1,000 gun, right?
Sure.
But the problem with that is that there are always, like, you're always concerned about manufacturing costs and being able to keep the price low, you know, and not. What ends up happening with a lot of guns is they start out at this idea, and then you say, well, we'd like to change this, this, and this. And in doing so, you're adding what ends up translating to $50 or $100 to the customer of cost. And you're like, okay, maybe the gun doesn't work at that price level, right? So that's always these little bitty things. But when a company like Saber Tactical comes out with, scope rail upgraded insert, Picatinny sections, I look at that like a great win, right? Like that's only a good thing. And if you do have those issues, it's something where you can, like, it sounds like this gentleman's done, is replace that. And I get it, it costs more and you shouldn't have to do it. And I don't disagree, you shouldn't have to do it. So those are the things I would check if you do run into that. But by and large, not an issue we've seen in like great numbers, I guess.
Makes sense. One of the cool things about the Avenger is I've always had expectations of it here because of the cost. And then when it comes to performance, like as far as accuracy in the tune, not build, it always delivers up here for me. And it's always been a draw for me with this gun. And then in reference to your point about, the top bits, I was thinking there's almost enough room in there where you were talking about tightening them and, filing off any little high points or molding casting marks or whatever. But you could also loosen them and then almost take that top poly bit or that top alloy bit and move it to one side and then try tightening it. Because there could be just enough play in there where if you moved them both, you might pick up a 1/4 inch at 25 yards or 1/4 inch at 50 yards. So just food for thought. Just something else for the audience to try. All right, next question. I would like to know if the guts of the gun can be swapped between the conventional stock and the Bullpup. That would add value to those of us who already have a standard model, but want to try a different caliber or stock.
Yes. That is all. No.
Yeah, that's fine. That works for me. That allows us to catch up.
The action is exactly the same, right? Like, oh gosh. All right.
Put it in front of your face.
Face. All right.
Focus on the face.
The action is exactly the same. The differences are the barrel bands and the trigger linkage. So yes, and obviously the scope rail and all those other things that make it a bullpup. But yes, action, all the parts are interchangeable. Excellent.
As others have said, the bullpup with forward and ideally reversible cocking and a wood. Sorry, it's very confusing because there's a lot of bold and not bold that went through here, so it's making my brain tie in knots. But as others have said, the bullpup with forward and ideally reversible cocking and a wood stock is what we're waiting on. Also, many report reg creep and various leaks. It would be nice to have some assurance that these design QC issues have been acknowledged, important parentheses on parentheses, and tended to parentheses, particularly the reg creep on parentheses. Thanks, exclamation point.
All right. Let's start with the first part.
Yeah.
So the wood stock thing we already addressed. The forward cocking thing won't happen from us. I'll tell you that right now. At least not anytime soon. There's no plans to do that. With that said, Steve, I think we talked about it when we talked with Pat and Adam and the Airgun Geeks. There are some aftermarket upgrades. Bonacci Goods has a forward cocking kit called the Quick Shot Kit. I have one of those. It's super awesome. If you're into that sort of thing, I'd highly recommend checking it out. If that is what you desire, that is what it does. So it's a pretty unique little system and works well. It will inhibit the use of larger aftermarket magazines, though, I should say that. Not that that's a huge deal for everybody. Okay, so reg creep.
Can I pause you on the reg creep and you can give you time to think for a second? So guys, we did, on this channel, if you look for a video not long ago, just a few weeks ago, called Avenger Tuning, the Airgun Geeks podcast, we must have talked reg creep on there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. What is reg creep? What isn't reg creep? What constitutes normal? What constitutes abnormal? What actually matters as far as POI shifts and velocity changes, and what actually doesn't matter. And we talked about it through a number of brands and rifles and regulators to include the Avenger. So if you want a huge bit on that, or more than I guess what Tyler's about to share with you, you're welcome to check that out, because that was a really good exchange we had, I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of info just fire hosed at people.
Got to go look for it
Yes,
sometimes.
yes. So for those at home, this is an Avenger regulator. Once you pull it out of the gun, that's your adjustment end, and that's the end that interfaces with the action itself. So there are two O-rings on this unit. One you can see, and then one that's in here. You got this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see those holes with the light in here, but there are these two holes. You can kind of crack them loose and then thread the whole thing apart. There's another O-ring at the bottom there, and then you have your face seal as well. Most common when we're talking about creep is the engagement of that face seal. So this is a weird thing. Depending on where you have it adjusted, I have found if you have like, just to use numbers, this is not an exact statement of fact or anything, but you may have your reg set at 2600 psi, and at 2600 psi you're getting a overnight creep of 300 psi, and that's where it kind of settles. Well, if you dial it back to 2200 psi, the creep disappears. Now, this is not an exact thing, but it has to do with the engagement of that face seal. Now, what I will say is that if that is an issue, what I would recommend is you can actually pop that seal out once you get this apart and flip it over to like a fresh side, right? And you can replace that face seal. Obviously, resealing those O-rings is going to be a good thing to do if you have it apart to begin with. But in general, yeah, I look at reg creep like the cynical and angry old man inside of me that wears glasses now says, be happy you can see it, okay? Like, be happy there's a gauge on the gun and that you can tell it's creeping, damn it. The air gunner in me is like, okay, how bad is this really? From a common practice perspective, if you are having what would be called like an overnight or a slow creep, where it's not impacting your shooting in a shooting session, but it is impacting you maybe overnight, or you put the gun up and you take it out to hunt next week or what have you. If that is happening and it's got that kind of slow creep up, and you dry fire and it comes right back, or you take one or two shots and it comes back to where it was set before, I don't personally look at that like it's a big issue. A lot of guns are that way, actually. I have field target guns that are that way. Is it what I want? No, but it is the reality of a regulator sometimes. And you will find that kind of behavior all over the board. Now, if you're talking about a quick reg creep, Steve, I think you alluded to this when we talked with the geeks, that that first gun you got was creeping, like you would go change a target or something in 15 minutes or so, and you'd come back and it would be creeping up there. That is a more immediate issue. That's one of those things where, like, if you are inclined to take apart your gun, that's where this is going to be where you're going to start, right? Or something where you'd give us a call and then we'll take care of it under warranty if you're still under warranty, or we can repair the gun for you or whatnot, right? We can explore those possibilities. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to add that in that circumstance, I was seeing like a 20 FPS jump if I let the gun sit for 15 minutes. 20 minutes. And so that let me know, well, this might be outside the parameters of what's acceptable by Nova Vista and Air Venturi. So I warranted that. I requested a warranty replacement on that, and I got it. And then the next one, the next one's, it's been good since 2020. So
yeah. Well, but this is, you bring up another point, and I guess to go back a second to that kind of slow creep issue, or even a fast creep, right? The way you have the gun set up is going to determine how big of a problem it is for you in the first place. Like, to Steve's point, if you're seeing big velocity swings in between the time it takes you to load a mag up, or, if you get up for 15 minutes, go change a target, whatever. You may have the gun set up at a place where if the reg jumps from 2200 to 2300, you are not going to see a very big velocity shift. You may see 5-7 feet per second shift, and you're not going to know it's a shift in the first place because this is well within normal extreme spread standards, right? So I don't even know if that's something you'd pick up on necessarily outside of watching that gauge. But yeah, it all depends on how you're using the gun in terms of what is going to be acceptable for you as an end user versus what we're talking about here, I guess.
I would validate that depending on your relationship between where your reg's at and where your hammer spring setting happens to be. It might not matter that that reg jumps, 50 psi, 25 psi overnight or over like an hour while you're waiting in the blind or under the log, whatever. It just might not matter. So in a lot of cases, you can tune around that. You can come up
Yeah.
with a tune that'll work with that where it's not so set. In some instances, it's critical and it absolutely changes your velocity by a lot. But I guess what I'm just trying to encourage the audience to experiment with is you can often find a tune that's more tolerant of that reg creep. And by tolerant, I mean you're not going to see such a shift in velocity. And I saw a lot of that with both when tuning both Avengers.
Yeah, it's a lot of this is also determined by your use of the gun. If you're shooting at 30 yards, and that's your backyard distance, and this is what you're shooting, 20 or 30 feet per second, you're not going to see it through the scope. So it may be there, but it's not going to impact your actual shooting or performance. For those of you that are looking to reach out to further distances, that's where it's going to come into play.
Yeah, to clarify, when I'm speaking of it mattering, 50 and 100 yards.
Yeah.
Inside of that, or inside of 30, 35. Well, again, the gun will tell you.
Absolutely,
It could also be 50 other things too, so you just got to know what you're doing.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily the red creep.
There was another part to that question too, outside of red creep. Was it leaks or something like that?
QC issues.
Yeah, so
I mean, he various leaks, quote unquote.
Yeah, so I'll say this: we've been really, really happy with the defect rate and or return rate, whatever you want to call it, of the Avenger. If you are constantly reading the forums, I think you see an Avenger thread pop up once a week, twice a week. Obviously, it was more when they first came out. The thing you don't have the context of is how many go out the door. It's a lot, and
yeah, it's
not
like
many of them come back.
I've had this conversation with FX before, and people don't really have a concept of the volume that some of these businesses put out, and if you're shipping hundreds of guns 5 days a week globally, I mean, do the math on that by 30 days, do the math on that by 12 months, do the math on that by 3, 5, 10, 15 years, and then look at the dozen, the 2 dozen, the 50 threads you've seen online maybe that weren't favorable.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't scale up. You're still talking about a problem rate of fractions of a percent.
Yep.
I'm not like trying to come to your rescue or anything, T. I'm just trying to offer the audience a perspective of like how I've always looked at that. And I also feel like it's human nature to reach out for help publicly more often than it is to offer accolade, go out of their way and invest time in offering accolades.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And so that perception can really get cattywampus.
Yeah, you look at any product across the board on any retail website. If they have a review system on their website where customers can come back and review it, all you are going to see is great and awful. That's it. There is usually very little in between. And you see very much the same behavior on forums, right? People only will talk about their gun or guns or whatever when they have something really, really good and awesome to share, or really, really horrible or a problem, or maybe they don't know it's a problem and they're curious if this is something that's normal or whatnot. So those are the things that you see, right? But then you always have to clarify that through the lens of, well, you don't know how big the industry is. Okay, and then even further, you don't know how popular a particular gun is. So without knowing those things, you can't get a real full scope of what that situation is.
You can't get a reliable perception is how it's always kind of, I mean, if I'm following you right, Tyler, it's not like you're acknowledging that, you have warranty challenges just like anything else. It's a mass produced product made not in this country, but that's what warranties are for. And that's what Venturis are for. I've been reading really nice comments about you, by the way, on my YouTube channel. Like
that's great.
The great service you guys have been offering.
That's awesome. Well, good. That's all part of the bigger picture, right? Is that when those things do happen, and they don't happen as often as the forums or Facebook or wherever it might lead you to believe, you know, you want to make sure that you're there to take care of the customer. And I believe we do a great job of that. I believe. Shoot me in the comments if I'm wrong.
You and I have never talked numbers before like I have with some of these other manufacturers, but I would imagine that people would be surprised. But we can keep that private, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. I'm not at liberty to disclose.
Yeah, it's private information.
It's a lot, though. It's a lot.
I can imagine. Oh, yeah, just by the views. Like I'm just one guy, and I think one, you know, I go back to 2020. The one rifle video I did is over 200,000 views, and the other one's over 100,000 views. I mean, holy crap! I mean, each one of them has an Avenger. I mean,
not that many, but it's a lot. But look at I always judge it oftentimes like, so the engagement on your tuning guide video, right? Like just skyrockets through the roof on the Bullpup really quickly, like the comments. And there are tons of comments because there are tons of Avenger owners, right? That maybe had a 25, you hadn't done a tuning guide on a 25, and they're seeing your results, and all of a sudden, you know, it becomes this interactive thing. But they're doing that because they also own one. Right?
Yeah, so, for sure. Well, let's continue to deconfuse the Avenger crowd and rip through these questions. Want to?
Fire away.
All right. So, this was for me, I guess. So, but feel free to jump in if I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So, Steve, do you feel that the tune for the Bullpup and long rifle are different? ? And what I mean by this is that if you use the long rifle tune for the Bullpup, do you think you would receive relatively the same results or no? Also want to state that if you were tuning the same cal in both models. So, God, I always have so many feelings when I get a question like this. So what I always try to impart on you guys is that my tuning guides are, they're guides for you as far as how to approach or tackle the task of tuning your airgun. While I give you really specific examples to validate my work or to get you in the ballpark, I never mean for any of you to duplicate my tunes. And the reason I say that is because tuning an airgun is always about finding a balance point between regulator and hammer spring setting to where you have that harmony and they like one another and you like your velocity and performance and everything is going well. And because these are mass produced, because temperature, elevation, humidity make huge differences and I see this every day I work on these things in outcome, as well as ammunition, tolerances with the pellet or slug in the barrel lottery, like so many factors go into this. I just want for you guys to try to take the tools that I've given you and take the understanding that I've given you in all these tuning guides that I've done. And I would add to that, if you have an Avenger, go watch a day state tuning guide. If you have an FX, go watch an Avenger tuning guide, and vice versa. You can learn so much just understanding the principles. Like I rewind 2-3 years ago, and I know so much more now than I did 2-3 years ago about tuning, because I've been able to experience it so many times over in so many different products. And the biggest thing I've taken away from all of that exposure is that it's all the same. They really all respond the same, unless you're talking about this LCS Air Arms SK19 over here, which has a free floating hammer where you have a regulator and then you have it's a power adjuster, but it's like a spigot. That thing doesn't behave anything like any other air gun I've ever experienced, even the electronic ones from Daystate. So that's just what I would really try to impart on this guy. What's his name? Oh boy. Ponce Heat 14. And so if there's differences, there can be so many reasons. I mean, 1/8 of a turn on a reg, 1/8 of a turn on a hammer spring, weather, ammo, barrel, the pixie dust that you happen to be breathing that day. Just try to take what you've learned from those tunes and go in search of those nuggets Pick yourself a hammer spring setting, go find a reg pressure that it likes. Pick yourself a reg pressure, go in search of a hammer spring setting that it likes. That's all you're doing with tuning. You're trying to find those balance points at a velocity that you like.
Yep.
Yep. And I don't know, did I leave anything out there?
No, that was great, man. The short answer to that question is kind of like yes.
Yes.
Like
I could have saved us 5 minutes. You could have saved us 5 minutes.
Steve, that was great, man. Look, the actions are the same. So between the rifle and the bullpup, so the same tuning principles like Steve is talking about apply to both. So if Steve had two 22 calibers and just happened to have a bullpup and a rifle, the tunes are going to be similar. Maybe not exact, right, to your point, Steve, but they're going to be really close. And that's, so yes is the short answer, but Steve's was way better. So.
Yeah, so to Tyler's point, you can use my exact tune to get in the ballpark. But I would encourage you not to do that. You know, if you look at, there's a video, I did a video with PJ Clark, who is on Team Donnie FL Saber, and he's an excellent airgun tuner, and it's on this vlog, and I think it's titled Airgun Tuning How To with PJ Clark or something. One of the things him and I both talked about is we go about tuning in the same way. We back everything way out. We back the reg way out. We back the hammer spring way out. We go all the way to the bottom, and we just start our way up until we find those little balance points and those little nuggets. And I know with the Avengers, I always like to back that reg way out to like 15, 1600, and then back that hammer spring way off, and then start creeping through that hammer spring to see if there's a setting there that will work with that reg pressure. And I just like to start at the bottom and work my way up. That way you don't lose anything that's anything good. You don't miss any, you don't skip over any. Well, good places.
And you also make the best use of the air you have on board without having to, in the case of the Avenger, degas it and start, you know what I mean? Like those things, right?
Sure.
I just went through this with one of our employees that just bought an Avenger. So I took, a half hour at the end of the day and sat out there with him and helped him get a good tune on it. And, the first thing I asked was like, what do you...
Half hour, damn, you're good.
Oh, I could do this much faster than that. This is easy
You're
stuff
a better
now.
man than I.
No. Well, yeah, but you're getting all of these settings, right? So if I know what ballpark I need to be in with this gun to get to certain results, and I know there's a reg pressure range that I can operate within, where then I can fine tune that hammer spring to really shrink the extreme spreads, right, and get that optimized performance. He said to me, he's like, "Well, I got to shoot a gopher in my backyard," and I was like, okay, sounds good. So 25 cal, I said, what's your distance? And he goes like under 30 yards. I'm like, okay, so a stock tune's going to be like the gun out of the box is going to be doing 45 foot-pounds, maybe 40, 46, 47. Sure enough, like right at 880, like it's cruising with 25 fours.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's good to go, but the reg's way too high. So I took him through and I said, okay, let's watch what happens when we fall off our reg and you watch the velocity climb, right? And you go, okay, so we have too much reg pressure, probably too much hammer spring as well, for what we're trying to achieve right now. So you're not going to have efficient results. The gun will shoot fine, but you're not getting the best efficiency. So we watch the velocities come back down. And I said, you watch that gauge right there. You watch the pressure gauge. And when we get to a place where that velocity hits where we want to be again, once after it spikes, you tell me what that pressure says. That's where we're going to set our reg. Right. It's commonly referred to as tuning for the knee of the curve. Right. And that's exactly what happened. It was like, boom, okay, 2,300 PSI comes back down to 880. I'm like, great, that's where we're going. So we did that. It was like 3 hammer spring turns in, and I was like, this is way too much. Like, the velocities are kind of bouncing a little bit. I said, okay, let's back off to like 1 turn. And so he backs off to 1 turn, and we shot 4 duplicates in a row.
Nice.
And he was like, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
When you put in the time and you find those little sweet spots where your gun's happy and the velocity is where you want it, and it's giving you the accuracy you want, man. Yep. It's all good. And to your point, I was sitting here thinking, it's gonna be so hard not to keep this turning into a tuning guide, because I think we have 3 pages of questions left here. But well, maybe I'll just shut up so that it doesn't. But I was just gonna. Efficiency doesn't always mean how many shots you get. When I think efficiency, I don't think that anymore. I think how much waste air is coming out around the pellet as it leaves that's going to disrupt it and put it into a wobble or a corkscrew. That's where my mind goes with efficiency, not how many shots am I getting.
Yeah, that's fair too.
Yeah, so you can get the same with a lower reg pressure and a lower hammer spring without all that waste. Yeah, the fringe benefit is that you pick up some shots, but the real beauty is you start seeing pellet on pellet at 50 and 100 yards, like you saw with the Avenger Bullpup full review on my other YouTube channel. I mean, I was just like, I mean, when I found it, I was like, that's it.
Yeah,
No
guys,
need to
I got a phone call after he shot that 100-yard group, and he's like, "You're not gonna believe this." I won't say exactly what he said, but that was the gist of it.
The funny thing is, I shot 400-yard groups, and even in the wind with that 25 grain, go at 875. That gun is a 1-inch MOA gun, or less when there's no wind.
Right.
But it kind of pigeonholed me into, I had to use the 25 grain, wouldn't allow me to use the 34.
Yeah.
But it's just, and then I shot 4 or 5 on camera there. I shared them all in the video, and 2 of them, one was like 1.25 inches, and one was like a 1/2 inch. It just really depended what the wind was doing. And the other ones, you could see it kind of just smearing off to the right with that left to right. But when it's good, it's good.
Yep.
All right, you ready for another one?
Go.
Hi, I've had an Venturi Avenger 22 for over a year now. It's a super rifle. And with the right pellets, it shoots easily 1-inch groups at 50 yards. Now I want to chase 100 yards with the same result. Woohoo! I like this guy. Therefore, I would like to increase the plenum volume. Not necessary. For this, I would like to know the thread type and size of the current plenum. There's more. I already don't like the path that this guy's going down, just because I don't want to see him complicate things for himself. I would also like to replace the 2 pressure tubes for a larger tank. Oh my gosh. Do you also have screw thread type and size of that? I can have the parts CNC made locally. Thanks in advance.
I would have had to do far more preparation to have these thread sizes for him. There's Facebook groups that popped up like right after the gun came out, so I watch all these guys modding and tuning, which I think is super cool. The one I can answer is the current plenum size, which is 12 cc's. I always question why people add a larger plenum extensions. Like I've seen people do it where they kind of like the old FX, the Mark II stuff before the power plenum came out, where they screw it into the gauge hole. Like in this case, they take out the degassing portion, like that whole piece comes out, and then they thread in, an extra kind of extender there, which is fine. It makes the stock fit is kind of goofy at that point. But that's neither here nor there.
I can't believe you're even entertaining this. I'm sitting here going, no, it doesn't need to do all this. No.
Well, so I agree with you, Steve. So for him to get good results at 100 yards, he certainly doesn't need to do all this. But like,
even sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but it can even detract from it.
Maybe
when you get that gun really banging and really making a lot of, it can get harder because then you're dealing with harmonics, and you're dealing with barrel whip and chassis whip, and you're dealing with waste air coming around up. I mean, you can actually be creating all of these. It's like the race car engine. It's like the Honda engine that'll go 500,000 miles at 200 horsepower. But then when you take that same engine and you make it a 600 horsepower turbo Type R for track use, well, now you have a 100,000 mile engine or a 50,000 mile, and you're just adding all of these layers that aren't necessarily necessary to achieve what I think he's trying to achieve.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do any of this. I totally am behind people that want to increase the air volume. I don't think that's not a big deal. You want to take your cylinders off and throw a bottle adapter on there? By all means, man, go for it. I
think just buy the 22.
Well, sure. Well, what you
get
can
100
do,
shots per fill.
What you can do actually is if you have 2 Avengers, okay, you can take the long tube that you're seeing here, the long tube. You take the long tube off of one gun and put it on the bottom to replace the short tube, and then you have 2 long boys, and then you have a stubby gun like I have, which we talked about with the Airgun geeks, and you can make a little carbine gun too. You just have to change out the fill port section, so that can be done. But there's guys out there making all of this stuff. If you really want to go modding, like join the Facebook groups. I think there's a Air Venturi Avenger group and an Air Venturi Avenger Shooters something or other group. Join those and ask this exact same question, but just about the plenum and the bottle adapter, and you will receive a lot of info. And I apologize for not having prepped with the thread sizes because Steve, we've talked about this before. I love seeing people mod this stuff. I think that it may not be necessary for what this guy wants to do, and we agree on that.
Yes.
But I think seeing just where people's minds go, like my envision for what would come after the Bullpup was a tactical gun, and it kind of like went a different direction because the gun exploded in a way where it's like, okay, maybe we can't do that right now, and we got to make sure we're maintaining what we have and doing it well. But then I started to see these guys create these aftermarket like little tactical chassis and stuff, and all these accessories, which is so awesome.
Yeah, I didn't mean to yuck your yum there as far as like the aftermarket or his either. I'm a firm believer in no man should tell another man what to do, and that isn't what I was trying to do. I was merely trying to address the part of his question where he had said, "It's going well at 50. Now I want to shoot at 100, and I got to do all these other things to the gun to make it shoot well at 100." And the reality is, you just don't need to.
You don't.
In fact, you could be making things a lot harder for yourself.
It's possible.
And I promise you, from one stranger to another, with a lot of hours behind both the rifle and the pup in 22 and 25, you just don't have to. Now, if you want to, man, go for it. Have fun and pimp it out.
The information is out there.
Information's out there. All right, you ready? Another one. Tyler, is the Avenger Bullpup left-hand friendly? Looks like the cocking lever placement would be a problem for southpaws. Steve. Oh, well, you do first and then.
Okay. Yeah. So it depends on your face. Seriously. We got a couple lefties at the office. I know that sounds weird. Patrick. Okay. Like Patrick and I were just talking about this yesterday. He's a lefty. His face, and again, I don't have the cheek piece on this gun, but his face like fits nicely right in front of the cocking lever. Okay. But it's right there. Okay. Like I don't even know if you can see this, but like there's very little space on my cheek. I can fit a finger in there. Okay. And again, that cocking lever sits up, or the cheek piece sits up here. So it's, it's not right on your face, but it is definitely not made to be left-hand friendly. And even if you are a lefty, while you're going to be able to shoot the gun, you are going to have to completely come off of the gun to cock it, right? So it's not made to be left-hand friendly. And for all of you lefties out there, this is the only time in my entire life I've ever apologized to anyone that was born backwards. I am sorry.
Shame on you.
Well, no, I don't remember what, I think it was when we were doing those videos with Travis, like when we did the Pyramid AGD mashup videos, where I was just like, who cares about 8% of the population? Like and I got harangued for it. But like I would ask the same question to Frederick Axelson. Like that man is a left-hander, like he's backwards.
So is his son Yuan.
Okay, well, but think about that.
And Yuan won RMAC shooting a right-handed gun. They both shoot like
they
pull the trigger with their right hand and they cock with. Oh no, wait.
No,
how do they do it?
You had it
but they're both left and they shoot a right-handed gun.
So, but how does either of them create the dream pup?
I don't know.
But you see what I'm saying, right? Like you just and I know the answer, right? It's that you can't. There's some things where like if you want to maintain a certain cost level and you don't want to over-engineer something or completely change something, because to make this gun potentially left-hand friendly, you're talking about moving the cocking lever forward. It changes the gun entirely. And for what ends up being 8% of the population, roughly, maybe even less than that. I'm not 100. That was the last number I saw.
Well, we're gonna get to that in part 2 of this question. That's
okay, but like
you're not the only one that's gonna owe an apology, I think.
Okay, but I see that, and I say, look, like some things are just not doable for what is a $400 gun. Now, if it were a more expensive gun, there are things we certainly could have done to make some changes that would have made it ambidextrous.
See, here's the second part. Steve, can you talk about the gun's ability to shoot left-handed in your review videos, question mark? It's an important topic for 15 to 20%
Absolutely not.
of the shooters out there.
Hang on, I'm checking this. Hang on.
And it's good. And it's something, well, I'll talk to this guy while you check. And it's, okay, I've totally butchered his question. Steve, can you talk about the gun's ability to be shot left-handed in your review videos? It's important. It's an important topic for 15 to 20% of the shooters out there, and is something that few gun makers want to discuss or address, especially with bullpup designs. Yes, I apologize. I should be doing a better job of that, and I am very guilty of it just really not occurring to me because it's just not part of my world. But I see your point, and I will do a better job of touching on that in reviews to come, because I can see how that would be important to you, you southpaws out there.
10%.
Sure. Okay.
That's
so
what the
one in
Google
10 guys
tells
and gals. Hey,
Yeah.
it's a lot. All right, ready for another question?
Yep.
We should probably try to move at a little faster pace, where we're going to be here like 6 hours.
All right, you're going to
Just
start
try to
getting
have
yes
this.
and no's.
So much for my backup questions. I had all these good backup questions I took from the YouTube comments and all the videos. But all right, ooh, this is a long one. I have a 22 Avenger, and I'm ready to start testing slugs. I have amassed a pretty good inventory of various weights, diameters, and brands. What would be a good velocity to start testing with? Maybe we should break it down so that we don't lose track.
Okay.
You want to speak to this?
At least 850. I guess hot. I mean, I'd say as hot as you can go, but 850 to, if you can get 880, 900, I think that's a good starting point.
I remember with that 22 Avenger that I have reviewed, I got it to like the FX hybrids, and if I remember, the speed was 915, 920.
Yep.
Something like that. You just have to see what it likes, and there's a lot of different things that'll affect that. But I also have memory of the H&N slugs working amazingly in the Air Arms S510 TDR with the Lothar Walther at 750 feet per second. Yep. They were like slug on slug. It
makes no sense. Yeah.
You just got to figure out. You just got to do the work. Let me just give a range. I've seen slugs work at 750, and I'm remembering back to the Daystate Red Wolf video where I was shooting 177 slugs at 100 yards at like 1,100 feet per second, 1,200 feet per second, and everything in between. But normally in my head, I'm trying to be north of 900. 900 to 1,000 is probably where most of them are going to want to live, I would guess. In my guessing from my experience. Also, when you do your 5 shots at 25 yards projectile call, do you just shoot them all with the same tune, or do you start with lighter projectiles and tune up the gun as you go and try to keep the pellets and slugs in an optimal velocity range? So if I'm tuning slugs, I just kind of what I just said, I'm usually like in my head, okay, I probably need to be 900 to 1,000. So before I go testing for accuracy, I'm going to try to come up with a tune that'll put those slugs in that neighborhood when it comes to a speed. He's not asking about pellets. I just to try to keep the pellets and slugs in optimal. Yeah. So okay. So he's asking about both. Yeah. So I always cater to the tune to what I'm trying to accomplish. If it's a pellet, I always want to be between 850 to, let's call it 910 feet per second. That's the window based on the barrel. If it's a Lothar Walther barrel, sometimes they run good. If it's a Lothar Walther polygonal, sometimes they'll run better higher, 900, 920. If it's any of the FX barrels, they like to run 850 to 880, I'll call it. If it's a Hatsan barrel, Hatsan barrels run pretty well hot. 900 feet per second-ish. I've seen good things out of 910. What's another barrel manufacturer I'm forgetting, buddy?
There's when was the last time you looked at a Crossman barrel? That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, Crossman uses Green Mountain. They use Lothar Walther. They use their own. They got rid of Green Mountain.
All their own stuff now, except for I think the Challenger and one other gun still have LW. But yeah, neither here nor there.
I will just say a blanketing statement is I feel for 50 and 100 yards, like most people are pushing their pellets too fast. Like there's rarely an instance where I want to be over 900 feet per second, even if it's a polygonal barrel. That's just me. But again, you have to let the gun tell you, because you may have a gun with a polygonal that runs well at 915, but not 895. You just get, and a lot of things come into that. And wind even matters as well. Sometimes, believe it or not, in wind, less velocity will get you a better result, because the wind has a tendency to destabilize pellets. Not so much with slugs. With slugs, often they're kind of immune. They'll move in the wind left to right, but you won't get so much of it, and you won't get so much of the up and down, and you won't get so much destabilization so long as the speed is there that they want. Whew. All right. Was that good? Do you want to add to that?
No, you're good. You're good.
Questions. All right, cool. My current setup is very close to your Pro Tune, 1700 PSI regulator pressure, and two turns in on the hammer spring. 1813s are leaving right around 885 feet per second. Great. Which I know is a little hot, but they do group well at 50 yards. It's all that matters, is that the performance you want is there. Tyler, how about giving Steve a 177 Woodstock Avenger to review? Buddy, I think I'm Avengered out for a while.
No, nobody wants to see that.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
What, then nobody wants to see that? Sure. In the grand scheme of things, I think it's probably less than that. It's probably like 5% of Avengers sold are 177s.
Interesting.
So it's not a lot. Obviously, that's here in the U.S. There are other markets where that's going to be far more popular. But here in the U.S., 22 and 25 are almost neck and neck.
I was just going to add that I've noticed that my followers over in the UK always seem very grateful when I do a 177. So I think it's really important to them. I feel like it's really important to them.
As somebody that shoots 177 far more than everything else, it's very important to me too. It's just when you talk about when we want to spend Steve's time on something, we want to connect with as many of the customers as possible.
Not the minority.
And look, you have some guns that are going to be like great in 177, right? I think probably we'll send you one of the Dragonfly multi-pumps, the new Mark II at some point. And we'll probably send you a 177 because, that gun's like it's a little pesting gun.
I would love that.
You can go either way. And
I don't know why I said I would love that. I would love that. I think I had a kink in my neck or something. He says, let's get some 177 love going on here. So if you like 177, I had the most amazing 177 experience when I reviewed the Daystate Red Wolf at 50 and 100 yards with slugs. Let me just say, holy crap, was that eye-opening. And I think I've reviewed several brake barrels along the way also in 177. As far as PCPs, I don't think I've ever reviewed outside of that Red Wolf. A 17. I love 177, but I think I'm in the same boat. Like my audience is very. They don't often request that.
Right.
I have an interest, and I certainly do care about my following over in Europe. So I do want to bring them through as much as I can. But for me, it's hard because it's always I always try to stay relevant to, the majority. I can't keep everyone happy, right? And there's only so many months in a year for me to be able to work on this stuff, and so I try to focus on the majority's needs, and hopefully the rest of you won't be too mad at me for it.
But to that guy, I will keep that in mind for future projects. So I'll try and earmark 177 stuff for Steve.
His name's Andrew, by the way.
Andrew, noted with thanks.
And thank you, Andrew. Great channels, Steve. Your reviews and tuning guides are awesome. ! Thanks to both of you for all you do for this awesome sport. ! Keep it up! So heartfelt, Andrew. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Yeah. Bonacci. I think you mentioned them. Did I say it right?
I don't know if it's Bonacci or Bonacci. I really don't know. I've met Anthony before, and I
should know. I'm
didn't
Steve
get the last
name. Bonacci.
That was really good. That was good.
We're getting punchy now. God knows how long.
I like it.
Hour and a half into this thing. Bonacci Goods has a forward cocking lever Anthony has invented for the Bullpup. Do a YouTube search and see a demo of the kit. Happy shooting. Great. All right, guys, go check out Bonacci and Anthony. Enhance your Avenger. Okay, next question. Hi, the Avenger long rifle 22 for over 8 months. I have the Avenger long rifle 22 for over 8 months and love the accuracy and consistency. A 2-inch round target at 70 yards is not an issue. Recently purchased the Bullpup version in 22, and it's all over the place. I'm talking about inconsistently hit an 8-inch rectangular metal plate at 25 yards.
Oh.
That's bad. I get so bad that I don't even know where the pellets go. One thing I noticed that the regulator would go beyond set point by a couple of hundred PSI. That's the creep.
Mm-hmm.
I set it down for 10 minutes. So we've already addressed that, so we're not going to rehash it here. I like to set my regulator around 1800 PSI, and I would see the pressure rise to 3000 PSI next day. Again, we've talked about that extensively. It's not that we don't care about you, buddy. We just want to get all these questions in.
Send it back. Just send it back.
Tyler's got you.
That sounds
Tyler's
pretty
got
extreme.
your back.
Send it back.
Awesome. It's awesome, buddy. Good on you. 2 or 3 shot, we'll get down to set pressure. Does anyone experience this issue with the Bullpup or have any recommendation?
It just sounds like something's wrong with this rag for that, but the accuracy thing's got me a little skeptical of if that's the only problem.
I've seen that kind of accuracy before, not in an Avenger. When that's happened to me, what's his name? Ooh, RC Hammer. When that's happened to me, I immediately suspect. My brain goes right to I have a defect in my barrel. I mean, 8 inches at 25 yards is massive.
Yeah.
Or something's out of a line with the barrel, the shroud. Something is majorly untight in the stock screws or shroud. Sometimes I know. I think when I got my Avenger, it was a little bit but if you loosen the screws and kind of let it go back and then just tighten them, because the brown Santa can sit on these things and transport, and this happens. One of the first things I do with every air gun that I get is I look down it. Is the shroud and the reservoir and the scope rail, is it all lined up? If it looks cattywampus, loosen everything up. It'll often kind of go back and then tighten it up. But yeah, it's 8 inches. You could. Yeah, if you have the wrong pellet at 25 yards and the right speed, you're going to be off by an inch.
Yeah, not 8 inches.
Yeah, it is. That's something else that they missed.
Yes.
Yeah. So check all of those things, and then if that doesn't work, and the scope too. If you have your scope, I've seen this before, especially
8 inches though, Steve.
If you have a scope that I've had before, where I've had scopes where I've adjusted them because the barrel and the shroud or the scope mount has been so awful where it should be. I'm all the way maxed out on my scope setting, and then they call this the erector tube. The springs that hold the erector tube in place, they can't. And so with each shot, you get a boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So check all of that stuff and then hit up the warranty, right?
Yep.
Okay. Next question. If you search on it, you will find regulator creep as a pervasive Avenger issue, and one that I've asked Tyler and Steve to specifically address. So I do want to add that in that Air Venturi Avenger podcast, we talked about that. I had so much to share, and I remember you had so much to share, all sorts of experiences and what mattered and what didn't. So I would say hit up that video rather than rehash it here, because I don't want to leave anyone's questions out if we don't have to.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to that part of the question too?
We've already talked about it here. Lots of questions.
However, an accuracy issue as extreme as what you are describing will not result from reg creep. He might be talking to.
Oh, he's talking to the okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have a flawed barrel, or your pellets are clipping the system. Sounds just like what you say. Or using horrible pellets. Dude, even a horrible pellet's going to be a 3-inch group at 25 yards. It's not going to miss by 8 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Thanks, Steve. I've checked the baffle and have no evidence of. Okay, so he's talking to the next guy.
Still same.
No evidence of cliff, and I've also tried different pressure as well as to shoot. Consistency is still all over. As far as pellets, I'm using Crossman hollow points. Red flag. That's
dude, we just finished review. We just posted a review of the Air Arms S510 Tactical, the new one. That thing shot premieres at 45 yards as well as JSB 16s.
Here's the thing, and I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but my pain point with the Crossman Premier hollow points is I have seen more than a surprising amount of guns like that pellet. But then you put 5 in the magazine, and then and 2 of the 5 like fall right through the magazine. And then you'll see that with
Sure.
the groups. Like
Yeah.
like you'll get like at 50 yards, you'll get like pellet on pellet, and all of a sudden it's like boop, 2 inches, boop, 1 inch.
Yeah.
And that's always been that's why I don't normally bring them into the culling process anymore, because I know that a lot of guns are going to like them. But what's the point if they're all so different that you can't put 10 in a magazine and go hunting for the day? So that's always been my challenge with.
Yeah, my issue is from 10 to 10, the consistency is always an issue. So if I get good results out of 10A and then at some point I have to go to 10B, the results may change wildly, and that's where I can't deal with that.
He's also saying he didn't get any improvement with the JSB or Air Arms Diablos.
Yeah, so send it back.
Send her back, buddy. Okay, why is the bolt, when using a 22 cal slug 217 in an Air Venturi Avenger, so hard to close, Larry?
Oh, because it's digging into the rifling so hard. I mean, you have a big solid chunk of lead that you are pushing into rifling, and it also the bore tapers, right? So that is part of your issue, is that when you go to seat that in, that last little bit to close it is going to always be tighter with a slug, because a pellet you have less bearing surface within the rifling, so it's not, at least in my experience, it's not ever going to be as difficult.
I've also experienced that, Larry, in the Avenger rifle and in other air guns, where slugs can sometimes take a good amount of effort, where you feel that slug cutting into the, wherever it's being seated. And as long as the accuracy is there, roll with it.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to obviously feel like you're breaking your probe.
Yeah, if you have to hammer the side lever closed, that's a problem.
Don't do that. Do you want to talk about that little rubber? Because I know when I was reviewing, when I was reviewing the pup, go ahead.
Under the front guy and the rear and the middle, there's 3 screws there. These 2 are the same size. That one's a little larger. I just flipped you off, Steve. I'm sorry. So good. Under the rear one, there's this little piece of rubber that is used so that if you take that little piece of rubber out and you screw that screw in as tight as it'll go, like the front 2 are, your accuracy results will very drastically change. So don't do that. That little piece of rubber is there as a nice little buffer.
Use your rubber.
Yeah. Don't be a fool. Wrap your tool.
Wrap your tool.
Yeah. But it's there for a reason. So leave it there, please.
To validate Tyler's story, I was working on the pup, and I had stuff apart, and I can't even remember why, but I had taken out that little rubber grommet, and I had put everything back together. And when I was moving my cocking arm forward, I could just feel like that pellet's ass was getting shaved off as I was putting it into the breech, and it just really messed up the alignment. And I put it back in, and it totally fit. I don't know what the heck that thing is, but it's important. And so just be mindful of it, guys.
Yep.
Move on?
Yep, sure.
When will individual parts be available? Cocking levers, barrels, air tubes, and small hardware parts. I love mine, but would like to know when I can get a part if I break or ruin a part. Just experimenting.
Sure.
JCS.
Sure. So we have the parts internally. They're not online because we want to have them for repairs. And obviously the global logistics situation is not doesn't lend itself to having things tomorrow anymore. So we are a little conservative in how we approach selling parts right now, because we want to make sure we have them to support warranty repairs when they come in. But with that said, we are probably next week going to be putting a Avenger kind of just general parts kit online, which will contain most of your important O-rings. So for the ends of the air cylinders, your probe O-rings, things like that. Some of those more key O-rings. as well as a fully assembled regulator and a firing valve as well, or the valve poppet with the stem. So we're going to be offering those things just to kind of hit a one touch all for everybody, because individual parts is a huge drag on our employees' time in terms of putting each individual part on the website. And it is also a real difficulty to make sure you are maintaining stock levels of all those parts. And it's just a kit seems to be the way to go. Especially because, you know, now we have a good sense of what the parts are that people may want to replace or should be looking at replacing. As far as spare air tubes and things like that, that's probably something we're going to keep inside more than put it on a website for sale. With that said, though, you may be able to call and get one, but you're not going to see it on the website.
Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Cool. I like that. I learned a lot there. Dude, page 2.
We're there.
And we're only actually an hour and 20 minutes. Well, at this rate, we'll be about 4 hours getting through the 3 pages.
It's all right. We're hitting our stride. I'm sure there's a lot of repeat questions in here as well.
Yeah, well, we'll try to.
I would imagine.
Well, page 2, first question. In the Avenger Bullpup tuning guide, Steve says that he couldn't get the power any lower because the hammer spring is too stiff. I'm with this. He also says that if your hammer spring is too high and the reg is too low, you will have a descending shot curve. Can you elaborate on the physics of this?
Okay, so yes, the way the gun is set up, both with the hammer spring, transfer port sizes, all of the above, it is optimized for higher power levels. The gun does not, and when I say higher, like in 22, we're talking like 28 to 40 plus foot-pounds. 25 is going to be 40-ish.
44 to
40.
60.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, you're going to be in that ballpark.
Still right there.
It's good. It's good. I like it. So if you want to go lower than that, you're going to make some concessions in terms of your general performance. The problem with having a low reg on this gun is the hammer spring is set up even at a very minimum to hit that valve hard enough to open it pretty well as high as 2,900 PSI. So the way everything inside of the gun is set up, it's to at least make the gun work when you set something, the hammer spring at this end and the reg at this end of the spectrum, right?
Can I add to this when you run out of gas?
You can go ahead now. Yeah, if you got a hot button thing, go.
I was just thinking, I'm trying to answer his question in the easiest way, where it would make sense to him, is Andrew. The event, the 20, let's call it 25 cal for me, didn't want to run much below 44 foot-pounds. I kind of got it to run at 42 and a half, 43, which is the eco tune, kinda, and it wanted to live between 44 and 57 foot-pounds. That's where the hammer spring and the regulator got along with one another. And so, he asks, I couldn't get it the power any lower because the hammer spring is too stiff. So what I meant by that is I wasn't able to get the gun to run any lower than about 43 foot-pounds because it just had too much hammer spring for a reg setting that would allow it to run at, say, 37 foot-pounds or 40 foot-pounds. And what I mean by that is I wasn't able to get, equal parts reg and hammer spring to where that harmony was there, to where I had a nice flat shot chart at the velocity that I wanted. And that's all I meant by that. So another way of looking at that is I backed the hammer spring all the way out, and then I dropped that reg to like 1500 PSI, and I started working in little increments up and up and up and up and up. I'm trying to remember, here's the eco tune, happens right in front of me. So at 2300 PSI on the reg, 2300 PSI on the reg is what liked. That's what intersected that hammer spring backed all the way out for 43 foot-pounds. And in order to run a 2200 PSI reg, a 2100 PSI reg, a 2000 PSI reg, which would have gotten those foot-pounds down into the 30s, I would have needed not as much hammer spring, and there was no way of getting that because I had it backed all the way out. I think hopefully that's a good way of answering that.
Yes, it is. And in theory, so the 177 and 22 is a separate hammer spring than the 25. You could change them out and probably, I've actually not done that. I'm going to go do that when we're done. Go see what happens.
He says he can't seem to wrap his head around it.
Yeah, so the physics there, I guess, is.
I try not to get into the physics. I just try to get into the task and the results because I'm not a physicist and I don't want to misrepresent that or confuse you, because I think at the end of the day, what matters is what you do and what you get, unless you're a physicist. And if I get a shot curve that is doing this and I can't, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my hammer spring tension to get that hammer more in harmony with where that reg's at. But if I can't reduce the hammer spring tension at all, well, I can always increase the reg pressure to make it work with that lower hammer spring tension. So in his case, if he has that descending shot curve, not any more hammer spring to back out, you got to come up on your reg pressure to meet it, as I did on this Eco Tune here. and 2300 PSI was as low as I could make it kind of go. That was with the 24 ES and a 6 SD, which is like, that's as poopy as I'm going to tolerate. My 22 Avenger has a descending shot curve when I have the hammer spring all the way out and the reg set to 1400. So that means you need to increase your reg pressure to shoot 16 or so pellets. So I know that it does happen. I just can't understand why. I wouldn't think it would matter with a regulated air gun. It matters a lot.
Matters.
All that matters, Andrew, in a regulated air gun is that you found the balance point between the regulator and the hammer spring. The regulator is just a flow control upstream of that valve. And you got to get them to where the forces they put on one another when they activate are in balance. In balance at 850 feet per second, 875, 900, whatever velocity you pick. And that's what you're doing when you're running up and down that scale looking for a hammer spring and a reg pressure that work with each other. Yeah, that is a common misconception that if I have a regulator, my shot chart's going to go like this. Only if you have a regulator that's in balance with what your valve is doing.
The way to make that work, for those of you out there, the interesting thing, there's like 3 points of adjustment on a lot of guns. You have a hammer spring, a reg adjustment, and a transfer port adjustment. The way I could manipulate this is, the Avenger doesn't have it, but if it did, as a transfer port adjustment where I could choke off that hole, and then you start to see some different results, but it doesn't apply here.
So use your rubber and choke off your hole.
Yes, and enjoy yourself. Shoot straight.
And shoot straight. I love you, man.
You like that? You like that?
We are birds of a feather. I'll tell you what.
I'm having a good time now.
This is great. I had this great quote. I read this great. I'm reading this book called Braving the Wilderness, and it talks all about like fitting in versus belonging, and how they're very different things. Like you can try to fit in all the time, but you'll never belong. Right. But you'll always belong if you are just always genuine and sincere about who you really are when you're interacting with somebody. Yep. And I was like, man, that is the sweet stuff. Because a lot of us will spend a lifetime trying to fit in somewhere. But if you don't have that, if you don't really kind of grasp like what belonging truly is, when you're true to yourself, I'm getting deep, buddy.
It's good.
Getting deep. Okay. Can the 177 Avenger be tuned to 10 to 12 foot-pounds without changing or adding any additional parts? Thanks. Next. No. That was Marquette.
The answer is no.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
It goes right back to what we were talking about, Marquette, with the gun will only run in a certain window based on the hammer spring that's in it, the ports that are in it, the way the regulator's set up, how long the barrel is, all that stuff.
Yeah, for what it's worth, 177 is like 16 foot-pounds to like 26. Like it goes, as far as 177s go, it goes hot. Like actually it shoots those JSB knockouts. I haven't tried any other like 177 slugs in volume, but
Mhm.
I have a 177 Avenger that is just like a stud with the 13 grain JSB knockouts,
Good to know. I was
and
gonna
it
say
shoots them
instead
at
of
like
sleeping,
23, 24 foot-pounds. It's a nice setup.
I have no experience and I just got them and I'm really excited to play with them, but I don't have a 177 here to try them in.
I can't
This
help you
next,
with that soon enough. Anyway, sorry.
I got to get to another gun. I got all these people mad at me for spending so long on the Avenger, but I'm not sorry. I mean, I'm sorry that they're mad at me, but I'm not sorry
Yeah.
that I spent so long in the Avenger. This next question is another Benaki Goods plug. If you got an Avenger, go check them out. We're gonna skip that. I just purchased an Avenger in 177, and this is my first PCP. I would love to see a tuning guide for the 177! Exclamation point. Thanks. Covered it. Take what you've learned in the day state tuning guides I've put out, the FX tuning guides I've put out, the Air Venturi tuning guides I've put out. It is all the same. I'll say dude because I can't pronounce the name. Peaceful Ruler, I can pronounce that. It's all the same approach. It's all the same technique. If you attack it as far as an understanding of what you need to do to go from A to Z, you'll get great results no matter what you're tuning and with what caliber.
Yep.
Ooh, this next one's long. He's answering a question for someone else that we've already covered, so I'm going to jump over it.
Okay.
And it's good. Go to Airgun Nation forum if you want to read it. It's a very nice explanation. There's another one that this guy's thanking him for that great explanation.
Sure.
So a little back and forth there. What they're talking about is one of the things I experienced with that first Bullpup, where the regulator was showing the valve a different PSI at let's say 4,300 down to 3,400 as it is from 3,400 down to when it falls off the reg. And you could see a lot of my shot charts in that tuning guide.
Yeah,
they're like they're this, and then it cuts the second half, and then the second gun didn't do that, and my Avenger rifle didn't do that. So I actually got a better regulator when I warrantied out my pup for something like totally different when I broke it. So that's kind of what they're talking about. They're noticing how, my Avenger works better when I do a 250 bar fill instead of a 300 bar fill.
Sure.
That can be tuning. That can be a reg issue. We've discussed a lot of it today, I think. Yeah, it could be broke. You're going to have to do the work to determine that, but necessarily. But again, I say broke, and that's
the gun's still working, obviously.
I was going to say that's still a shot chart with a 16 foot per second extreme spread.
Yeah, right.
Where I was noticing that phenomenon I just shared with you. So does that mean it's going to matter at 50 and 100 yards? Nope.
Right.
Won't matter. Okay. So it could muck with harmonics, but I don't think so. All right. Next question. I'm blabbering. Parts availability has been brought up, but I think that's a big one. I would just like to add an opinion to it. I would like to continue to see a good functioning Avenger at this price point around 350, but also upgradable. I realize this is a dream for probably every product ever made. After replacing one or more of the reservoir O-rings with low miles on it, I was very tempted to make a bottle gun, not only for performance, but produce the number of O-rings required to hold a charge of air. Tyler's already mentioned they're looking at putting together kind of like a repair kit.
Oh, it'll be online here pretty soon, actually.
Okay, perfect. So you can buy that and then get through. Good. Thanks for the question. I think these are all such great questions. Next question. I just ordered a 22 caliber version. It should arrive in a couple of days. Woohoo! How much air drain is to be expected if the rifle is left charged and unused for a couple or few days? Goose egg. I can see you in my peripheral vision, Tyler.
Good. Okay.
Or should be emptied after each use? Question marks. Thanks, John.
0. The PCPs in general should not leak when you store them, and you want to store them with air in them. You do not need to degas this gun or any PCP unless you are attempting to do some kind of work to it. In the case of the Avenger, if you want to adjust the regulator down from where it's set at currently, you do want to degas the gun. Those steps are there in the manual. you go ahead, follow that procedure, but that would require you to degas the gun. But for normal usage, once you have it set up the way you want it, you're good.
And I would like to add to that, this is just the years of experience talking, being a reviewer, and my time being really important to me because I hate having to send stuff back or make warranty claims. This is like you guys, I just don't have the time. But if ever I get a gun and I notice that overnight or over a week, the air's coming down a little bit, get a little soap, get a little water, put it in a bottle, start spraying it around the pressure gauges. That's the first place I spray it. The second place I spray it is on the wherever you fill the gun, like the male Foster fitting. And a lot of times if you get the bubbling there, it's like 1/15 of a turn, 1/20th of a turn. Like you can turn 1/10 of a turn and it's too much and you've crushed whatever seal lives underneath that. But I've gotten myself out of hot water. Sorry, you were gonna say?
No, you're good. You're good.
I have gotten myself out of hot water just by kind of learning that and making that little tight, and then I'm good. 9 times out of 10, it's that and not something more major.
Yes, I would tend to agree. Yes.
Cool. Why am I answering this? This is your show.
That was good.
I'm getting too excited.
That was good.
Thank you. Thanks, bud. A properly functioning PCP okay, he's answering his question. Yeah, I store mine I store all my air guns at half. They should never leak. You never want to store them at empty, like what Tyler said, because you want the seals to be expanded and pressing out into the little grooves that they press out on firmly. Because if they're not pressed out there firmly, then you can get leaks and also dust and other crap can get in there that make the seals not work anymore once you go to fill it up.
Yes.
Is that good?
That was great.
Okay, cool.
Stellar.
Hey man, anytime the Venturi product manager agrees with you on public YouTube, I'd say that makes me feel whole. Okay, answering his question again. This is an interesting one. I put an FX chronograph on an Avenger with rubber bands. It caused the pellet to hit 1.5 inches low. Normal. So I mounted it with Velcro for me, and the problem was solved. See photos. And he put some nice photos. If you guys want to see a setup, go over to Airgun Nation Forum, see the sticky post.
So it was like hanging and causing the barrel to droop.
Well, for me, the FX Crony doesn't really weigh anything. But when you hang it on there, and especially at the higher power levels, you're going to get a point of impact change.
Sure,
It may not matter so much, at the lower power levels.
But you should also, for what it's worth to this person or anybody out there, you should have enough room to hang it off of the bottom or the top air cylinder, the long cylinder, versus connecting it to the barrel. You should have enough room between those two for like an O-ring or something, or not an O-ring, but a rubber band rather, to put it on that air cylinder versus hanging it off of both.
If they're touching, those are touching, you have something bent, and that's really going to muck with your accuracy.
There should be just a little bit of a gap. I mean, it's small, but enough for a rubber band to fit through.
And you should be able to see light through it at least. Yep. Again, this is why I always preach don't overpower your air guns, because that gap may be sufficient at a moderate or normal power level, but when you overpower, you get so much whip in everything that now they're touching, and now you're like, and that might have been one of the reasons why I couldn't get the gun to shoot well at 58 foot-pounds, but I got it to shoot great at 45 foot-pounds. Oh, isn't that nice? That silence for a moment. I can hear the fans and the computer running. I can hear myself breathing again. It's like yoga. I had the best yoga class yesterday. I fell asleep. So at the end of the yoga class, we do this thing where we sprawl out on the mat, and the instructor, it's outdoor yoga. Okay. Like indoor, but it's like screened in, and there's waterfalls, and there's birds, and it's sunset, and
that's cool.
Oh God, it's amazing. And I fell asleep.
Nice.
And apparently I started snoring. And it embarrassed the crap out of Katya. So I woke up to her like slapping my arm, and like the whole class laughing. But you're so relaxed at the end of it, after an hour of this stuff, and they take you through all this meditation. I just passed right out. Okay, I may be cheap targets. I may be cheap targets, but a ruler, ballpoint pen, Sharpie, and box fixes from Amazon work great for me. Awesome picture on Airgun Nation Forum. Go check it out. Another guy on the plenum, Tyler. I would like to see a plenum upgrade for the 22 for a little more power. Dude, if this
I just rolled
gun
my
made
eyes.
any more power, it's going to fly apart.
No, no, no.
It would be nice to have a 22 Avenger with at least 50 foot-pounds from the factory. And parts available to upgrade power.
Now, wait a minute. 22 or 25?
He said 22.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's okay.
Yeah,
That's a
to me,
smoke show right there.
if I'm in the 40s on a 22, man, I'm on the high end of where I'd want to be.
Yeah.
For pellets especially, but even for slugs. Anyway.
I'm not indulging this. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not going to happen,
The
bro.
gun is
Sorry.
very accurate. He's paying you a nice compliment. The gun
Well,
is
that's
very
good.
accurate and super gun. Otherwise, also a thumbhole stock. The thumbhole stock, I'm going to
Okay.
back him on.
I'm going to
But the
tell you.
rifle is.
I'm
Okay.
going to tell you all a story. When
I'm
the
going to put
gun
my eye drops while you do that.
when the gun first came out, so the original Avenger synthetic stock, we had plans for the wood stock version. With that said, though, we were really pleasantly surprised when a representative from Boyd's, everybody knows Boyd's Custom Stocks,
Yeah.
reached out to us and said, "Hey, we've been getting a lot of requests for this. We don't know if it'll fit. Would you mind sending us one?" And I said, "Abso-frickin-lutely," right? Because don't cry, Steve. It's okay.
You're making me squirt.
Oh, God.
Oh, I got an eyelash stuck, I think. Sorry.
And
so rude I've interrupted you.
No, you're good, man. We set them a gun and they came back. So because of that second air cylinder underneath, they don't have a stock with a depth, a deep enough belly, I guess, to accommodate it. Now you can make one out of a blank, I guess, but they would have needed to create like a whole new stock for it. It didn't fit any of their existing patterns. So we couldn't do anything. We wanted to work with them on something cool, right? Because that would have been great. And even if it was something they offered directly to customers, it would have been great to point people to that. But yeah, sadly, not something that is in the cards right now. Sorry.
Fair enough. Boyd's is awesome. I had one of their
Yeah.
blaster stocks on a Marauder, that beautiful laminate blue.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Thumbhole. I sold it. I had too many guns. I sold it. That thing was 150-yard, 25 cal Marauder with a green mountain barrel.
Yep.
I could hit a little 4-inch, 5-inch camping frying pan at 150 yards. Amazing.
You and I could probably do a whole one of these about the guns we've let go.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You only have so much room in the closet is the problem. And you don't use them, so it's wasteful. You might as well get
I got a whole room. I got a whole room. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I try to keep it to about 6.
Yeah. I'm 10, 11, something like that usually.
Oh, you're a glutton. I have all this liquid in my eyes. I can't see anything now. Great question. What type of barrel does this have? Traditional grooves or poly? Tell us about the barrel, T.
Yeah, so traditional grooves, cut, button rifled barrel.
Non-choked, right?
Non-choked and loosely crowned.
I noticed the rifle had no crown that I reviewed. The pup had a little crown.
Yep. So that's
didn't matter. They both shot at 100 yards.
We got this question the other day, and I just started laughing, which I'm fairly certain the person asking me thought I was like having a mental break or something, because this customer emailed in and said, like, I have an Avenger rifle and it shoots so well, but I noticed that the barrel's not crowned, and I'd really like to put a crown on it. Is that going to hurt anything? And I just started laughing because it's like, why mess with it? That's my mentality. But also, it's not going to hurt anything for those of you out there. But you're modifying the gun. It's going to void your warranty, like that kind of stuff. I can tell you, I've done it. I don't see it make a difference. If the barrel shoots good out of the box, it shoots good. That's it.
I've always understood the function of a crown is to protect the rifling as it's there up around that end, more so than it would be related to turbulence.
Yeah, so there is some sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
There is some relation
at least 5 times.
There is some relationship between the angle of a crown and the air dispersion out of the barrel.
Okay.
How much that actually matters, though, I couldn't tell you. Like, you would have to really get into the minutia and experiment at these differing angles to see if it mattered. But yeah, like in my opinion, the function of that crown is first and foremost to provide some level of protection if you drop the gun muzzle down, right? Like, which it's a shrouded barrel, so that's not going to happen. But yeah, that's like the first thing that comes into my head, and it's also to ensure that there is a clean exit for the projectile. Although I think I've told you this before, like I had an Avenger that was just a laser beam. The first guns that we sent out to reviewers and stuff, one of these guns was just like a laser. So I like sat it in the corner and said, "We're
Barrel
not sending
lottery,
this to
woo!
anybody." Well, they were all good. That's the other thing is we had like 20 of these guns and 10 and 22 and 10 and 25, and this was just like these were pulled from production and shipped ahead by air while the other stuff was on the water. I had a big cardboard thing, and I was just literally taking gun, putting air in gun, putting the same scope onto the gun and shooting it at the same red dot. And they were all like, they weren't all like hitting dead in the same spot or anything like that. But there's this picture somewhere buried on my phone of 20 individual groups that were all like 3/4 of an inch or better in 2 calibers, right? And I was like, so at the time, $300 gun. I was like, F me. Wow. Like that's crazy. And like, there's some minute differences. The reg pressures are, a little bit different here and there, but like they shot. And the ones that were a little bit bigger, I took out the next day on a separate piece of paper, and instead of running JSB 18s and JSB Kings, I put H&M Barracudas into both of them and laser, like half inch.
Laser.
And I'm like, this is
That
some
22
voodoo
I
stuff.
got in the closet with no crown on it at all is a
Yeah.
100-yard 1-inch gun with FX hybrids. So
Yeah, but this one, sorry, to bring that back, this one gun that I sat in the corner, I pulled the shroud off one day, and the end of the barrel was cut like this, like at an angle.
weird.
But it was a laser, dude. So like this,
No.
I'm dead serious to all of you out there. This gun has blown my mind in terms of what is actually necessary.
Yeah, it's like they really figured out the barrel. This is Nova
Yeah.
Vista, right?
Yep,
This is a
yep.
Chinese-made barrel.
Yep.
Yeah, they figured it. At least they didn't figure it out in the pup. I didn't like my barrel in the pup, although I couldn't argue with its 50 and 100-yard accuracy with the 25 grain JSB. The barrel I got in the 22 rifle, that thing shot everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it shot slugs, it shot 18 grain pellets, it shot 16 grain pellets, it shot 24 grain pellets.
Yep.
I mean, it shot multiple different slugs, and it shot JSBs, it shot H&Ns. I mean, that even like the Crossmans.
Yeah.
3 out of 5 times.
I think we talked about this. The 25 is a little bit more particular, in my experience as well. But you do get the barrels that will shoot the King heavies and just the Mark IIs, somewhat interchangeably. But it's not every gun. But you can almost guarantee that Kings are going to shoot great.
Tyler, I was going to give you a review demoing the Pro Tune and the 34 grain Power Tune, and you just didn't give me a gun that could do it. And some people in my audience think that you like the cull guns for me.
Yeah, no, that's
maybe you should have.
So you don't you don't have the time to send guns back and stuff. I don't have the time to go through 5 guns and pick the best one. It's just not
good
realistic.
My results that I get start differing from what my audience gets. That's going to cause problems for me, and I don't want that. Mm-hmm. All right, next question. Wondering if the company or in general ever thought of a system that actually is blowback that could be used in a PCP or as a semi-auto fire and still with great accuracy and not hammerless. Thank you for your time. I'm going to go get a prop.
Sure. Yeah. Conceptually, this is the same concept, I think, is what Hotson's using, the old FX guns that were semi-autos used. I think that's what we're talking about here, with the blowback system where the air kicks back in the shroud or something like that. And what Steve is showing you right now is a hammerless non-blowback system. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like that?
Mm-hmm.
This thing's got it dialed in, man.
Yeah, but as far as Air Venturi goes, there's not presently anything that I'm aware of when we talk about blowback semi-auto PCPs. Presently. Could change tomorrow, but presently there's not such a thing.
I don't even know how that hammerless works. I don't know if it's blowback like a It's not? All right. We won't get into that unless you want to.
It's a wild system that I have trouble wrapping my head around, but it is, yeah,
Pass.
no.
I just know it tunes really differently, and it took me a lot of 900
Yeah.
pellets to tune it because I couldn't figure it out. And I've never seen a guide on tuning one. So, he says thank you for your time, by the way.
You're welcome.
With that question.
Hopefully, thanks for watching.
Hopefully they watch this long, hour and 47.
Right.
I just purchased a 22 Avenger rifle. Tried slugs, but no go. Just not enough power to get the lightest slug over about 850 feet per second. FX hybrids, interesting, because I do remember getting mine. I thought it was 90.
Yep.
Go back and double check me. I thought it was 90.
No. You should be able to push them 22 grain pellet or slug. Yeah, you should be able. What do you say? 8 what?
850. To me, I feel like that there's a tuning issue there, but I don't know.
I mean, you should be able to.
Not judging, just maybe. Tried 4 other slugs at slower and maxed reg and maxed hammer spring. That's a little red flag for me. Max and max, or max of one and the other, or one and not the other, doesn't always necessarily mean most power, most speed. Curiously, the tuning guide said I should get 5.5 rotations on the hammer spring before it maxes out, but I only get 4. There's a clue. Could there be something? Could there be something on the inside of the gun holding the hammer spring?
Yes.
Back.
Yes.
Any thanks up front.
I'll try and show this. All right. So at the back of the action, there's a hole here where my finger is, and there's a corresponding hole on the other side. This is your hammer spring adjustment screw. If you remove those 2 screws, and there's one underneath here somewhere, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's been a minute since I've done this, you can, maybe it's from above. I'm sorry, it's been a really long time since I've like fully gutted one of these. But with that said, you can actually pull the whole thing out, right? Like the hammer spring, and it has there's a little flat piece on the back of it, that it pushes against. And what can happen is if the lip, at the back of the spring isn't completely flush, as you're coming around, it can catch the top of it and feel like it stops and you can't push past it. I've seen this once or twice where people are like, oh, I only get 3 turns.
It happened with me originally on the rifle.
Did it really?
Okay. 3.5 turns, something like that, and then I can't remember what I did to fix it, but I was able to fix it.
Yeah, so sometimes you can just like really crank on it and it goes.
I think that's what I did to fix it.
You know what? Yeah, no, I recall being on the phone with you, and I'm like, it's okay if you crank on it, man. Like it's all right, Yeah. So you can try that. You're not going to break anything if you like really crank on it. Well, you might break your Allen key or something. Don't use a ball head. But with that said, you can pull that out if you want to and give it a look. And if you have like a polishing wheel or a buffing wheel or something like that, just take the end of that spring and flush that little edge up, because that's probably all it is. It's just catching and hanging up.
5.5 turns is what I remember on both Avengers.
Yeah, it's usually there can be a little
5.5, 5 3/4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The farmer FPV comes in behind him and says he runs 19 grain slugs at 910 feet per second. They work great out of his Avenger. He's smacking prairie dogs at 120 plus yards.
Holy smokes.
Edit. There's a rough spot when you are turning the hammer spring out. I had that in the rifle. You have to kind of force it to get to 5 turns. I had that. Just everything you're saying, T. I believe it was a mistake when he did that on his tuning guide. Mine only has 4 turns because it did not go past the rough spot. There was also, I ultimately found all of my bandwidth, so I'm not sure what he meant by that. But there's also 2 for the tuning guide. There's also 2 set screws on the left and right side that hold the hammers, is what you're just talking about. Hammer spring adjustment for moving after you get it set to where you want to tighten those. I didn't think that was the case because I remember the manual setting in time it'll move.
Yeah, well, that's just talking about spring fatigue from cycling, but yeah.
This guy says if not, eventually you'll lose your tune from the hammer spring backing out. I haven't seen that on my Avengers, but even though the manual said it might, haven't seen anybody mention those screws yet. Well, Tyler, you fix that.
Well, that's not what they're there for, but that's okay.
Dude, page 3.
Send it.
Hour and 50. The Avenger has been sold for more than 1 year, and I doubt that there will ever be any parts available. Covered it.
Incorrect. Yeah. Nice idea, though. I appreciate the cynicism.
I think I'm grateful that these people are giving us the opportunity, or you the opportunity to answer questions, and me too. And
For sure, man. Happy to do it.
Where and when we get answers for these questions, okay?
On YouTube, right this very instant.
Maybe tomorrow morning at Tampa Bay Lightning, Game 3 tonight against Toronto, Stanley Cup playoffs. I'll be jetting out there and pretty damn soon, so we got to go. Another great review, wonderful information, extremely informative. Thank you, Steve. All right. No.
Yes, thank you, Steve.
Sorry. Didn't mean to not be appreciative there. Is there going to be a Woodstock Bullpup? Covered it. Explaining the proper way to correct regulator creep. The air cylinder needs to be cleaned before assembly. I'm going to let you speak to that.
I don't think the two are related. Nope, not related. Well, the reg creep thing we've already talked about, but I'm not sure I quite understand the air cylinder thing. Cleaned before assembly.
I've never had that. Like when I've experienced reg creep in anything I've reviewed, a replacement regulator has fixed that for me.
Sure.
Now maybe he's saying some dirt got from the air tube into the reg. Well, I do know that if you over grease, like where your bottle is, that can get into the reg and gunk it up.
It's also possible that maybe he's talking about the area where if you pull the reg out completely, maybe, like in that area that he's talking about, maybe had, I don't know.
Trash, I would imagine trash in there.
I mean, if you have the gun apart, cleaning things is a good idea. Like you're there, you know what I mean? Might as well.
If you want slugs that will shoot great out of your Avenger, get some AVS slugs. So shout out to Steven at AVS.
Yeah.
Stefan, it looks like. Stefan made them to work great out of the Avenger, Aspen, and Liberty.
I have heard really great things about his slugs. I haven't had the opportunity to try them yet, but I do know multiple people that have had nothing but great things to say about his stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that's everything on the... We're inside of 2 hours, and that's everything on
Dang.
And I got more. I got from
if you want,
just from the 2 YouTube videos. You want to try to round it up to 2 hours and see if we can get a few more knocked out?
Sure.
By the way, guys, please in your comments below, let me know how you feel about the length of these vlogs. I mean, I get it. Everyone wants a vlog to be 20 minutes long, a half an hour long, an hour long, but I'm like, how do you get through any material, like the way Tyler and I were doing? And, I'd just be curious to know if it's off-putting to you that these are 2 hours long, because I definitely wouldn't want to scare away any of my audience or discourage you guys from watching, because there's so many golden nuggets in here. But I would like to know what you have to say.
Steve, personally, if I can weigh in on this particular subject,
sure.
I listen to a fair number of podcasts, but I do the same thing with like really long videos where I'll just put them in, I'll just like hook it up to my car and let it play while I'm driving to and from work.
Mm-hmm. And,
occasionally when I get home from work, I'll just like continue on as I'm making dinner or whatever, watching or listening, but it's more listening for me, like that's how a lot of this goes.
That's what Adam says. He likes to listen to my videos in the car. And then if he wants to watch something, he'll go back and watch that at home or whatever.
Yep.
He listens from PJ Clark says that.
Yep.
PJ Clark likes to get on his exercise, his treadmill.
Yeah.
And watch.
Yep.
I used to get screen. You remember Tobias, the international sales manager for Diana? He used to send me screenshots from Germany of like him on his like exercise thing and his TV with me on his television. Man, that felt so good.
These are all better people than I in that regard. Like I wake up in the morning and this is my problem is when did you drop? Your videos are usually later in the evening for me anyway. So I'm like, gotta watch it. Not going to bed. Okay.
Oh, really?
Oh, dude. I'm bad about that stuff from a personal health perspective, because it's like if there's something, it'll just stay in my head. Like I'm it's a curiosity killed the cat thing. So it's like, just give in, go watch the video or listen to the thing and, just get it out of the way, and then, wake up in the morning and not like have that bugging me, it's way better for me.
Interesting. Truth be told, I had gone a week. I put up that Avenger Bullpup video, and I hadn't heard from you in a week. And I said, well, there's another sponsor I've pissed off by telling the truth. I'm like,
No.
Put him in there with the rest.
No, not at all. I was probably one of the first people to watch it, actually.
Thank you. Appreciate
I would
it.
think. I think it had only like a couple hundred views on it when I watched it. So
I appreciate that very much. I have one guy let me know that he likes to listen to me as I fall asleep because I have a very relaxing voice.
There's like an app for that where they get famous actors to
Really?
like read stuff or like do poems as they fall asleep. Man, you should try out or something.
I hate my voice. I said this the other day. Well, nasally, I feel like I sound like a Smurf in heat. I don't like my voice. All right, so let's try to burn through some of these. I'm not even going to try this name. I don't think it's from this country. How are you doing today, Steve? Quick question. I follow the tune you did the other day, and my Avenger 25 isn't that accurate as other videos I've watched. Something is wrong with my Avenger.
Okay, you would need to know like what the group sizes are. I will say this.
So much.
These guns have really great potential, and they are like surprisingly accurate for the price point. And then, quite frankly, there are a lot of guns in the price point in that sub $400 range that are super accurate these days. With that said, there is no guarantee you're going to get sub 1-inch groups at 100 yards. Okay, like nobody is going to ever say that. I only know of one high-end rifle airgun manufacturer that says that guarantees it. That's extreme, right? Personally, the threshold I have always used to measure a gun, and this is probably
I'm very curious to hear this.
I'm old school in this way, right? Because of when I got into air guns, and I think you and I are around the same timing on that. Like, I remember back in the day when I got my first PCP, like shooting a 1-inch group at 50 yards was like, whoa, and there were a lot of guns that did way better than that, to be very clear. The measure for me of an accurate gun at 45, 50 yards is 3/4 of an inch or better. If I can hold that kind of accuracy, that's especially when you contextualize it with a sub $400 price point, and the trigger's not perfect, and there's like, it's not a perfect gun. That to me is like, wow, okay. But
I'm really gonna mess you up with my definition, probably cause all sorts of problems.
Well, so here's what screws me up, okay? I remember a while ago I did a video on like an FX something or other. I think it was when they put out the new Superior barrel liner thing. And I was like getting 1/2-inch groups at 45 yards. And people were like, that's not good enough. And I'm like, bro, seriously? Like,
for what? Good enough for what?
Exactly, Steve, right?
I mean, the smallest critter I know of is like a chipmunk, and it's good enough. Unless you're going to be shooting field mice at 50 yards.
Right.
Or like grasshoppers, like Justin at Utah Airguns likes to shoot grasshoppers at 100 yards.
But that's what gets me up here is like the expectations of some people. You just are not going to be able to please them.
It might be because of guys like me, though. What my gospel has been.
But I don't think I've ever heard you say like, this is the expectation.
I've never said it.
It's always filtered through.
I'm going to say it here in a minute.
It's filtered through, though. This is the gun I'm looking at, right? And these are the results I got, and they are here to be a guide for you all, right? And maybe that's why people think you get cherry-picked stuff, right? But at the same time, I don't personally know of anybody that's putting the amount of time, effort into the process as you are.
I think there's a lot of layers that people don't realize that go into getting the accuracy out of the gun. And I invest the hours. That's why I'm normally 3 to 6 weeks on a gun.
Right.
Like for me, regardless of the price point, my expectation is 1/2-inch at 50 and inside of 2 inches at 100 yards. That's interesting. That's if I found the right pellet for that barrel. That's if I've learned the state of cleanliness that barrel likes to shoot its best at. That's if I'm doing everything right. my approach, my follow through, my cheek, my shoulder. Am I moving through the trigger quickly or slowly? Is it coming up on the wall and then just gradual pressure, or am I coming up on the wall and moving through the pressure quickly? It's follow through. It's, have I got the speed right to be the best that the gun can be with that pellet in those windy conditions? Have I got the power right to where the harmonics are settled enough to where the accuracy can be there? Like I've really found over the last 7 years, and I've had to warranty out guns, you know, like we've been talking about today, just like you guys have. When I invest the time and having the understanding of all of that, and also I should say, be lucky enough to have a tin of pellets where the head sizes are all similar, because some are great and some are crap. And I've run into that on this channel, and we shared it. It was about 6 months ago. When all of that lines up, pretty much all these guns should be in that half inch at 50, 2 inches at 100. And I'm not talking, and that's also with no wind.
But then that's the big clarifier, right?
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, but that's shooting outside. You know, the pellet can fly through a ball of gnats 70 yards downrange, and I have that. I see that in the scope, or seeds flying through the air. But that's what I've always gotten, having invested humongous hours to make sure all of that's, like, I've put huge hours in and thought a gun was broke, and then changed something I did with the trigger, or changed something I did with my follow through or shoulder or cheek or grip pressure, grip weight.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it's just, so there's so much more to this than I think that people realize. And I'm talking PCPs here. I'm not even talking springers. All right, you ready for another one? We're about 2 hours. My regulator creeps in Airgun Depot says it's normal. Frowny face.
Depends on the situation, I guess.
Depends on your definition
we talked
of
about.
normal.
We
talked about it.
Right.
Guys, check out that video I did with PJ Clark. We have such a huge, no, Airgun Geeks.
It was us and the Airgun
and you.
Geeks. Yeah.
It was Tyler, myself, Patrick, and Adam. Big red creep talk there. What type of bipod is that? Says Gino. I'm always using the Accutac BR4 G2.
Yep. Dope bipods.
Yep. My Atlas is, for some reason, gotten loose on me and floppy, and I can't get it to work right. Anyway, thanks. Can you tell me if this new rifle has regulator creep? Next. Hello, I was wondering. I have an Venturi Avenger, and the pellet for mine is the H&N Hornets exclamation point. Is my gun special? Yes. Or did I find the one that it likes? Question mark. Thank you for your time.
Both, all of the above.
I haven't found that.
Wow. Yeah.
And not because necessarily that's a pellet that a lot of guns don't like. It hasn't fit in a lot of magazines for me. And I always feel funny about sharing a pellet with the audience unless it fits in the magazine. Like if it's a one-trick pony, like a shot tray only, I was like, I don't know.
You have to get like really undeniably good results to want to take it. Okay, so this pellet I shot, these 5 pellets I shot in the magazine, but this one, it's a little long for the mag, but holy crap, was it stellar when I single loaded it, right? Like it has to be like game changing almost for you to want to be like, I took this brief departure from the norm to put this in here for you guys, you know?
But at the end of the day, like his name's Robert. If I'm Robert, if that's the pellet my gun likes, that's what I'm going with.
Go for it.
Yep. Hey, Steve. Great guide as always, exclamation point. I'm curious if you're considering getting the FX barrel tuner to try out on guns like this. So funny thing is, you didn't know this, but I called them and asked for a barrel tuner.
Didn't you put it on there? I thought I saw a picture of it on there.
I never put it on there, but I bought them because I wanted to try it on your Avenger pup, but the damn thing didn't need it. You know, so I didn't try it, but I wanted, I was kind of hoping that like maybe the 100-yard accuracy wouldn't be quite there and I could dial it in with the harmonics and that tuner, but it was so good I didn't wind up using it. Anyway, he goes on to say, if I understand it correctly, one could just tune to the best ESSD possible at a given power range, then use the barrel tuner to dial in the accuracy. Seems to simplify the process. What do you think? You obviously have something to say about this.
I don't think it's quite that simple. Like Getting good numbers is one thing. Getting good numbers and the right pellet to barrel combination is completely another. So you know you have to check all the boxes. You can't just like, oh, I can tune a gun with you know with this but it's not a pellet that the gun likes, and then expect that to translate over to something
Yeah,
else.
the barrel tuner for me is the cherry on top that
Mm.
brings it all together.
Mm.
In other words, the first thing I'm doing is finding the pellet or slug that the barrel likes, and then I'm going out to find the speed that it wants to be shot at for the best accuracy at that distance. And then I'm going to put together the best tune, to his point, ES and SD I can for that pellet and that speed at that distance. And then then the fourth step would be to bring it all together with the barrel tuner to bring the harmonics into it, to see if you can take a 2-inch group and make it a 1-inch group, or a 3-inch group and make it a 2-inch group at 100 yards, I'm talking here, or make a 1/2-inch group at 50, turn it into 3/8. Like, to me, that's what the barrel tuner is for, especially in the higher power levels when the whip gets really nasty.
I had an interesting conversation with Newman over at FX, Newman Buck, who also runs 910 Airgun tuning, like great guy. Where he was explaining, like, he went down this rabbit hole with the barrel tuner one day and like never found his way out of it, and it just like it turned out that the gun was happy where it was, you know, which is interesting because but with an Avenger, right? My thing is, unless you have a Donnie extender, you're not touching the barrel, right? So like, let's say you bought the Donnie makes an
Oh,
adapter.
you're talking about on the Avenger.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So Donnie makes an adapter that just screws into the end of the shroud, right, and doesn't have the centering thing. And I'm sure there's somebody 3D printing some adapter out there with, you know, 1/2-inch 20 threads that folks are using that doesn't touch the barrel. So
Yeah,
if that's the case, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's going to do much of anything. You need to have the Donnie extender on there and actually be contacting the barrel to have a harmonics impact on the system.
I don't know. I don't know if I disagree. I can't say that I disagree with you because I have no context, but I don't feel like it. I don't necessarily feel like that might be the case. For me, the shroud even has a role there.
Oh,
The
sure.
barrel bands have a role there. The stock and the stock screws have a role there, especially when it comes to the higher power levels with harmonics. What Tyler's making reference to, guys, is it's called a Donnie FL barrel extender. And what that is that's an adapter for the Gauntlet as well as the Avenger. And it's, yeah.
Does it work for the Gauntlet? No, that's a different shroud.
If you go to his website, it's advertised as for the Gauntlet and the Avenger, and it's called an extender. I'm just trying to get them to where they
can go. Umarex Origin, not the Gauntlet.
Maybe.
It's the Origin.
Thank you if I'm wrong.
Yes.
I just want to get them into the right place.
You're good. Yeah.
And then if you guys want to learn more about harmonic barrel tuning, there's 3 places I would send you. Chris Turek, Up North Airgunner, his YouTube channel. He was a co-developer on the FX Harmonic Barrel Tuner. PJ Clark, his YouTube channel is Wisconsin Airgunners. He was a co-developer on the FX Harmonic Barrel Tuner. And then if you go to the video I did at the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge last year, Winning Guns, Gear, and Approach, I interviewed both of those guys, and they talked tons about it, how to make it work, you know, what it does, what it doesn't do, the process, you know, exactly how they go through, like incorporating it, to Robert's point, in his tunes, and when to use it and at what stage along. You know, watch that video as well. That's on my other YouTube channel, AEAC Home, and you will come away with a lot of information on what that is and how to use it properly. Ooh, 2 hours and 10. Let's see. So Steve, do you feel that the tune for the bullpup and long rifle are different? I think we've kind of covered that. And what I meant by that is, if you use the long rifle tune for your bullpup, do you think you would receive relatively results or no?
I think that's like the exact same question.
Yeah, it might have been. Also, I want to state if you were tuning the same cal in both models.
I think
that was Midwest Technical Air asked that.
But yes, basically. I mean, if this had been if Steve had been doing 22 bullpup, it would have been very, very similar numbers to his 22 rifle.
Yes, but as I'm always on my soapbox, try to take the approach and apply that rather than my specific settings or calibrations. I think you'll be happier with the result. Go look for those harmonic intersecting points where the regulator and the valve are having a love affair.
And you'll learn stuff.
Yeah, and you'll learn stuff. And you will find these nuggets that no one else has found.
And there's a value to having that knowledge when you approach the next gun, or if you have a gun that doesn't have any adjustment to it, you can actually, you will know what that gun is set up to do right out of the box just by running your first couple chronograph strings with it.
Totally. This guy asks about storing an air rifle. We talked about that. Interesting. So this gentleman's from France. He watches my YouTube channel. He has an Venturi Avenger. I didn't know you sold those things in France.
I didn't know we sold those things in France either.
He has one in 22. I have two questions for you.
Okay.
According to you, what is the right power range for shooting at 54 yards with a lot of cells, and with what pellets? I would say at 50 yards, I'm going to want to be 35-ish, 40 foot-pounds in 22. 35-ish foot-pounds in 22, I think would be fine.
With what pellets? Like you'd be able to shoot 28 to 30 foot-pounds with zero issue at that distance, as long as the wind is
with an 18
okay.
grain. But if you're going to go to the 24 grain, you're going to be in the closer to 40.
Yes.
Yeah, 30 to 40 foot-pounds. 18 to 24 grain.
Fours, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Same question, precision shooting at 108 yards.
Why 108?
It might be 100 meters.
Yeah, I think that's like 110, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for shooting those longer distances, I like the redesigned shaped pellet in 22, i.e. the 2395 versus the 1813. Tends to do grain, tends to do better in the wind. It's destabilized less at higher speed. So I'm going to probably try to tune with it. This is like what I tried with the 25 cal pump. I couldn't get it to like the 34 grain redesign. So I'm always going to try for that. And if the gun likes it, I'm going to try to push them 870, 880, 900, 910, whatever it tells you it wants. Yeah. And then
agreed.
You're going to be in the 40s for foot-pounds with that. Man, there's only two. So I backed my Aaron says, so I backed my hammer screw all the way. So I backed my hammer screw out all the way, tied to go more in case it was stuck, but it is not. Then I tuned. It can only go in 3.5 turns. Okay, we covered that. Could you remove the barrel shroud and shoot cleaning pellets through it? That's a good one.
You could just remove the end cap and do that without removing the entire shroud.
Dude, cleaning pellets don't do anything for me. Do they work for you?
No, it's a dumb well, I shouldn't say it's a dumb concept. It's not a dumb concept.
It is a dumb concept.
No, it's not. It's not, because that's not what they were made for. So there's a bunch of cleaning kits that are used like often in the 10-meter world. Mm-hmm. If you look at these little felt pellets, not all of them now, but in the past, they have a little dimple or a hole in one end of them, and that's to be screwed on to not a jag, but a jag, I guess.
That makes sense.
And pulled
or a cleaning
through.
Rod even.
Yeah, and pulled through. It wasn't necessarily developed initially to be shot through. I think the shooting through concept might work okay at lower velocities, like 10-meter velocities.
It's just, to me, in my mind, it's going to just skip right over the lead, any lead that's built up on the...
Maybe, but conceptually, right, you have to wrap your head around, okay, I'm going to lube potentially a pellet of one of these little felt pellets or whatever, and push it into my barrel with a probe or without, or do it by hand or whatever you have in mind. God knows where that lubricant or whatever is going to go, if you got a transfer port in the way or, whatever, and then shoot it through.
Man, for me,
be a tight fit.
Spend $10.
Patchworm.
Get a 2020 Concepts patchworm bore cleaner. Spend another $10 and get a bottle of Ballistol.
We sell both. Just head on over to pyramidair.com. We'll take
Spend $5-10 and get yourself some cleaning patches. And that I'm gonna make a claim. You ready?
Have at it.
I don't think anything works better than that. I've seen that again and again. Unless you're going to take the barrel and run some crawl through it, like, and let it sit overnight, take the O-rings out, hit it with a bore mop or whatever. I don't think anything else is going to work.
I do the same process. I think it's just a matter of experimenting, figuring out what works best for you. When you clean a barrel, you want a tight fit in that barrel with your patches or whatever. And like for me, I like the patchworm kit. Play with different size patches though. No, patches.
That's what I do. Did you take that from one of my tuning guides?
No, I've been doing this for years, Steve.
Are you sure it wasn't subconscious? Because I preached that.
I mean, maybe I heard you say it one time, but I was probably nodding my head along with it if I did.
All right, I won't try to take your credit.
But look, I think that there's it works, right? And well, inevitably people arrive. Hey, no, this is a great kind of a similar thing, right? How are there pyramids in both Egypt and in Mexico, right? Why do people
and in the bottom of Lake Michigan?
All over
Hello,
the place.
ancient aliens. I'm a total ancient
Absolutely.
alien.
But why do people or things arrive on the same shapes, right? Like, think about it. Anyway,
Yep.
Same
well, there's
idea.
power. There's a lot of power to be said for what you just said. That if we both came to that, those collars that come with the patchworm kit, combined with, like, you can fine tune how hard those collars scrub on the barrel bore with the different size patches. If you're doing that independently and I'm doing that independently and seeing the best results with that, like all my videos, that's the only way I do it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the accuracy out of the gun.
Yeah,
There's got to be something to that.
So, and this is another thing I should say. I don't clean anything right out of the box. I'm weird. Okay, I know a lot of guys that do that right out of the box. Yeah.
I do that.
I know, and that's fine.
Box cleaner.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm not knocking that. I want to know what the gun does right away, right? Like, because if it sucks, then I'll clean it. But sometimes you get these gems, man. Like right out of the box, you don't have to do a whole hell of a lot, and then you learn what that cleaning process is like. You talk about
too particular natured. I have to.
I know.
Foreign contaminant. Foreign contaminant. I got to clean it.
Yeah.
But then after I clean it, I go in search of, like, where does that barrel want to live? Does it want to live dirty? Does it want to live clean? I'm always amazed. I would say 8 out of 10 air guns that I review across all the brands, clean them, season them with like 10 shots, maybe 15, and I'm pellet on pellet at 50 yards.
Yep. And it comes right back.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like, I'd say maybe more than 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then I don't clean it unless I know unless I feel I'm doing everything right, and then the accuracy gets weird.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like some lead is, like, built up in there somewhere.
For me, it's learning, like, especially with my field target rigs, like, it's learning what that interval is for the barrel, right? Because at some point you've shot enough where it dirties the barrel to a point where, something else is happening inside of that gun. So for me, it's like learning, okay, this gun over here is 200 pellets. If I go past 200, I'm boned. If I do 2.5 tins on this gun over here, though, I could shoot that all day. So I'll clean it after every tin, because that just keeps me in a safe space, right? But yeah, I mean, to your point, like, once you clean it, I do like a couple, maybe 2 or 3 wet patches, and then everything else dry and until they come out clean. Yeah, 10 shots.
That's what usually, I do.
Right back.
I run the wet until the lead stops coming out.
Okay.
And then I start dry patching it.
Yeah.
And usually that's 2, 3, 4, 5 patches on the wet. Yeah. Hey, can I do it before we wrap it up? Can I do can I do like an infomercial on your video for, like, a competing company?
It's your channel, man. I don't care.
So guys, what I'm doing with Tyler right now, I want to try to do going forward with, like, all the guns that come through here. Like, Tyler's the Venturi product manager. He's got tremendous knowledge about that brand, as well as air gun shooting in general. He's a competitive shooter, and he works at Pyramid and for Air Venturi.
I get to play with a lot of air guns.
He's super. He's been reviewing air guns for a lot of years over there on YouTube's Pyramid Air Insider. But this LCS Air Arms SK19 I got over here, I'm going to be doing this with Robert Buchanan, the owner of Precision Airgun Distribution and Air Guns of Arizona, who's the importer for LCS, or the distributor importer for LCS. I think they're their own importer because, they're based in China, but they have facilities in North Carolina where their guns are manufactured. So however that works, but and I'd like to do this with him. And then when I do a day state, I'd like to maybe get Tony over in the UK. And when I do an FX, maybe I can get Newman or John Tooler or somebody super amazing like that. And just, if I do a Viro, maybe I can get
Hans or
Tilo over in Germany. And if it's a Diana, maybe Marcus, and just kind of keep this going. And, so if that's important to you, to meet factory folks and get to know them and do Q&As, guys, I never ask you to subscribe because, I don't want to get too.
I'll do it.
I'll get too ASCII. Subscribe and tell your friends and like and share and give us comments, and that's going to be coming up. And so,
it's awesome.
That was. I just wanted to plug.
All right. Well, let me do the part you don't want to do then. So look, YouTube doesn't like guns. All right. So basically, folks out there, you guys need to like, comment, get engagement on the video so the algorithm knows this is where you want to be and you want to see more of it. And it helps a ton. Like, seriously, if you're not subscribed, subscribe and share the video with your friends if you got airgun buddies. It helps everybody collectively. Do that to your favorite airgun channels. It helps them grow, gives them a bigger foothold, and makes us as like a sub industry on YouTube more undeniable. So please do that.
To your point, I feel like by them liking and commenting, I feel like that helps the algorithm. By subscribing, you're helping me help you, because the bigger the channel gets, I feel like the more participation I get from companies like Air Venturi and Pyramid Air. Those companies want to be a part of, whoever's carrying the mail. With whatever with the YouTubers, and so you're helping me, and we're in that together. So, anything you could do, I'd be grateful. Yeah, dude, I have to pee so bad. It's not even fun.
You're good, man.
Are floating.
You're good. We're good.
We're good.
I think we're good.
Nice and long. Guys, thank you. Instagram, Hooked on Air. Facebook, Hooked on Air. 2 YouTube channels. This one, AEAC Vlog, and also the Airgun Exploration and Advancement channel, also called AEAC Home. That's the main one. This is the sister channel. You can find me on both, as well as on the Airgun Nation forum. We leaving anything else out?
You can find me at pyramidair.com, Pyramid Air YouTube, at Pyramid Air on Instagram, and twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, you can ask me whatever ridiculous airgun questions come into your mind, and I'm happy to answer them. So
outstanding. Well, dude, I'm going to go pee, shower, and go watch some hockey. And
enjoy. Good luck.
Yeah, for bearing with us. Thank you, T. And Tyler, thank you so much for doing this with me. Hopefully we're paving the road and enticing other factory partners to come do this with me. So I'm going to use your video as a template.
Happy to help, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Yep. Take it easy.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you.